The moonlight falls gently on the ripples of a quiet pond. The air is crisp, carrying the scent of pine and earth, a fragrance that carries with it centuries of wisdom. As the soft winds rustle the leaves, they seem to whisper ancient teachings from the temple at the foot of the mountain. The bells toll once, slow, deliberate, a reminder to return to the present moment. This is the place where mindfulness is born, the stillness where thoughts and feelings arise and fade, like clouds passing across a vast, empty sky. In the tradition of Zen, we are taught to observe life as it is, without grasping at it, without seeking to control it. We learn to see things as they are, uncolored by judgment or expectation. The mind is like a clear mirror, reflecting the world exactly as it is, without distortion. Yet, how often do we look into the mirror of our mind and find it clouded with thoughts, anxieties, and judgments? Our thoughts flow like a river, constant, unbidden, sometimes overwhelming. They arise, fade, and arise again, each time carrying with them a new wave of emotion, expectation, or desire. To practice mindfulness of thoughts is to simply observe these thoughts without becoming attached to them. We do not judge them as good or bad, but instead let them come and go as they will, like clouds drifting across the sky. In doing so, we begin to experience the world with clarity and peace, untangled from the constant web of our mental narratives. Just as we do not control the winds or the flowing river, we do not control our thoughts. We learn to accept them as they come, knowing that they, too, are impermanent. Zen teaches us to live fully in each moment, to sit in stillness, to breathe in the cool night air, and to be aware of the subtle movements within ourselves, without clinging, without running from what we find. In the practice of mindfulness, we begin to understand that the mind is like the sky, vast and open, while our thoughts are like passing clouds. Some clouds are light, others are dark, but all are temporary, and none are permanent. It is in this quiet observation that we find peace, not in controlling the river of our thoughts, but in allowing it to flow freely without resistance. As we sit, we allow ourselves to let go of the need to control, to judge, or to hold on to the fleeting thoughts that arise. The art of mindfulness is in knowing that these thoughts, like the winds and the river, are not ours to keep or to mold. They are simply part of the world around us, moving in their own time, teaching us the impermanence of all things. In this series of reflections, we will explore stories, ancient tales that guide us in understanding how to live with a mind that is open, free, and non-judgmental. These stories will gently lead us through the practice of mindfulness of thoughts, showing us how to observe without attachment, to listen without judgment, and to be present without expectation. As you listen, allow yourself to breathe deeply, to let go of any tension, and to open your heart to the wisdom that these stories hold. Let us begin with the first story. Pause and reflect now. Take a moment to sit quietly, close your eyes, and breathe deeply. Let your breath become slow and steady, like the ebb and flow of the ocean. With each inhalation, bring your attention to the present moment. With each exhalation, release any tension you may be holding in your body. Allow yourself to become aware of your thoughts as they arise. Do not judge them. Do not cling to them. Simply notice them like clouds passing in the sky. Let them come and let them go. This is the beginning of mindfulness, observing without judgment, allowing the thoughts to come and go as they will. We're like the bamboo in the wind, flexible, open, not bound by the gusts that pass through us. In this space of stillness, we are ready to move forward, to listen and reflect deeply on the first story, as it will lead us further into understanding the nature of our thoughts and our hearts. It is early morning. The air is fresh with the scent of dew, and the earth is still sleeping under the soft, golden embrace of dawn. The temple courtyard is quiet, save for the soft murmur of the wind passing through the tall bamboo stalks that surround the garden. In the distance, the sound of flowing water can be heard, gently flowing from a small stream that winds its way around the temple grounds. In the middle of this serene landscape stands a young monk named Rio. His robes are plain, and his face carries the calm of someone who has spent many years in silent meditation. Rio is sitting by the edge of the stream, his legs crossed beneath him, his hands resting lightly on his knees. He is not here to meditate on a specific thought, but to observe. The water moves gently, the rocks beneath it smooth and unperturbed by the passage of time. The stream flows onward, never rushing, never stopping, just moving as it always has. Rio has been practicing mindfulness for many years, but today, something feels different. He is not thinking of the past or the future, nor is he trying to control his thoughts. He simply sits, watching the water, observing its flow. There's a subtle sensation in his chest, a quiet realization that he is not separate from this stream. He is the water. He is the current that moves through him, the thoughts that rise and fade like the ripples in the stream. As Rio watches the water, he notices that the flow is not constant. There are moments when the current is swift, pushing over the rocks with strength, and then there are moments when it slows, meandering gently, almost lazily. But whether fast or slow, the water never resists. It simply moves, adapting to the shape of the riverbed, accepting whatever comes without judgment. The water does not seek to control its path. It simply follows the way forward with grace. This, Rio realizes, is how the mind should be. Like the water, the thoughts arise and fade, some quick and forceful, others slow and deliberate. But in each moment, they are just passing like ripples on the surface of a still pond. The mind is not something to be controlled, nor is it something to be pushed away. It is simply to be observed with acceptance. A traveler comes along the path, stopping beside Rio. His clothes are tattered from the road, and his face carries the weariness of many days spent walking in the sun. The traveler notices Rio sitting quietly by the stream and, intrigued by the calmness of his posture, sits down beside him. "Why do you sit here in silence?" the traveler asks. "Do you not have thoughts like everyone else?" Rio opens his eyes slowly, gazing at the traveler with a quiet smile. "I sit here to observe the river," he replies softly. "It is the same as the thoughts in the mind. They arise and fade, just as the river flows. It is not for me to control the river, nor is it for me to control my thoughts. I only watch, and in that watching there is peace." The traveler furrows his brow. "But how can you sit so calmly when the mind is filled with so many thoughts? Do you not wish to change them?" Rio gently shakes his head. The river does not change its course by force. It flows where it must, guided by the landscape, shaped by the earth, and yet it never resists. The same is true of thoughts. They come, they go, and it is in the acceptance of their coming and going that we find peace. If you try to change the river, you will exhaust yourself. But if you let the river be, you will see that it is already perfect. The traveler remains silent for a moment, reflecting on Rio's words. The sound of the stream continues to fill the air, steady and unchanging. The wind rustles the leaves in the trees, and the first rays of sunlight break through the clouds, casting a soft glow across the landscape. Finally, the traveler speaks again. So, you're saying that it is not the thoughts that trouble us, but our resistance to them. Rio nods. Yes, it is our attachment to thoughts, our desire to control them, that causes suffering. The thoughts themselves are like the river, neither good nor bad, just flowing. It is when we try to stop the flow, to hold on to one thought or push another away, that we become troubled. But if we simply observe them without judgment, we find that they pass as easily as the clouds in the sky. The traveler sighs deeply, as if a weight has been lifted from his shoulders. He looks down at the stream, watching the water as it flows around the rocks, gentle yet persistent. Understand now, he says softly. It is not about controlling the thoughts, but about letting them flow, letting them be. Rio smiles gently. Yes, the mind is like the river. It does not need to be controlled, only observed. The traveler sits quietly for a while longer, gazing at the water. He feels a sense of peace settling over him, as if the very act of watching the water has helped to still his mind. He does not feel the need to change his thoughts, nor does he feel the need to hold on to any particular thought. Instead, he simply watches, allowing each thought to pass by like a leaf drifting on the surface of the stream. After a while, the traveler stands, ready to continue his journey. He bows to Rio in gratitude. Thank you for your wisdom, he says. I will carry it with me as I walk. Rio bows in return, his hands pressed together in a gesture of gratitude and respect. May your path be peaceful, he says softly, and the traveler continues on his way, leaving behind the stillness of the temple garden, but carrying with him a new understanding of the mind. Pause and reflect as you sit in stillness. Notice your thoughts as they come and go. Do not hold on to them, and do not push them away. Just observe like the water flowing gently over the rocks. Notice how each thought arises and fades, just like the ripples on the surface of the stream. In this observation, there is no need for judgment. There is only peace. In the cool shadows of a distant bamboo grove, where the soft chirping of crickets fills the air and the fragrance of blooming jasmine carries on the evening breeze, there's a quiet monk named Aisho. His robe is a simple gray, the fabric worn from years of use. Yet it seems to blend perfectly with the natural world around him. Aisho spends his days in meditation, walking the temple grounds and tending to the small garden that flourishes near the temple's edge. It is in this garden that the story begins. One day, as Aisho waters a young lotus plant, a curious traveler arrives at the temple. He is weary from his long journey, his feet dusted with the remnants of many miles walked under the hot sun. The traveler is not just physically tired, but also carries the heaviness of many unanswered questions, the weight of thoughts that swirl relentlessly in his mind. His questions are not about the world outside, but about the world within. As he walks in the garden, the traveler sees Aisho sitting quietly by the lotus pond, his hands resting lightly on his knees, his eyes soft and unfocused, gazing toward the wind that rustles the leaves of the bamboo trees. The air is cool, and the sound of the wind is soothing, but the traveler feels something inside him stir, something not at peace. Unable to contain his frustration, the traveler approaches Aisho. "Monk," the traveler begins, "I have traveled far and have come seeking answers. My mind is filled with questions, worries, and thoughts that do not cease. I cannot seem to stop them. I try, but they only grow louder. Tell me, how do I find peace when my mind is so restless?" Aisho does not immediately respond. He simply continues to sit in the stillness, listening to the wind, feeling the rhythm of the world around him. The traveler waits, growing more impatient, feeling the heaviness of his own thoughts pressing against him like a storm. Finally, Aisho looks up, his eyes calm, and he gestures toward the lotus pond. "Look at the lotus flowers," Aisho says, his voice gentle, almost like the whisper of the breeze. "Do you see how they move in the water?" The traveler looks toward the pond and watches the soft ripples dance across the surface, gently rocking the flowers. The wind stirs, causing the flowers to sway back and forth in a graceful, fluid motion. The sight is peaceful, but the traveler does not understand. "Yes, I see them," the traveler replies. "But what does this have to do with my restless mind?" Aisho smiles softly, his eyes still on the water. "The wind moves the flowers, but if the flowers resisted, if they fought against the wind, they would not move so gracefully. Instead, they would break, bend unnaturally, or fall from the water entirely." The traveler frowns, still uncertain. "But what does that have to do with my thoughts?" Aisho's smile deepens. "Your thoughts are like the wind, constantly moving and changing. Sometimes they're gentle, like the soft breeze that sways the flowers, and other times they are strong and fierce, like a storm. But just as the lotus flowers do not resist the wind, you too must learn not to resist your thoughts. If you fight them, they will only grow stronger, like the wind trying to uproot the flowers. But if you allow them to come and go, without attachment or judgment, they will pass just as the wind passes." The traveler looks at the flowers once more, and this time, he notices something subtle. As the flowers sway with the breeze, they do not try to fight it. They simply bend with it, yielding to its movement. They do not strain or break under its force. They allow the wind to pass through them, trusting that they will remain anchored in the water no matter how the wind moves. A quiet realization begins to settle in the traveler's heart. "But how do I stop fighting my thoughts?" the traveler asks, his voice softer now, tinged with a new kind of curiosity. Aisho's gaze is steady, as if he has been waiting for this moment. "You do not need to stop your thoughts. You simply need to stop resisting them. When a thought arises, do not cling to it, do not follow it. Simply observe it, as you observe the wind moving the flowers. Let it come and let it go. You are not your thoughts. You are the space in which they arise and fade." The traveler feels a warmth in his chest, a softening, as though the heavy weight of his thoughts is beginning to lift. He watches the lotus flowers once more, their graceful movement in the wind a metaphor for his own thoughts. He sees now that the more he resists the wind, the more he struggles against it, the more it controls him. But when he allows the wind to pass, when he lets it move through him without attachment, it loses its power to disturb him. "Thank you, monk," the traveler says, bowing deeply. "I understand now. It is not my thoughts that trouble me, but my attachment to them. I will remember the lotus flowers and let my thoughts come and go like the wind." Aisho nods, his eyes filled with a quiet, serene understanding. "May you find peace in the flow of life," he says softly. "Like the lotus, may you bend with the wind without breaking." The traveler walks away from the pond, the lessons of the lotus flowers still echoing in his mind. As he walks, he notices the wind again, but this time he feels no resistance to it. His thoughts come and go, just as the wind moves through the bamboo grove, and he lets them pass without clinging, without judgment. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine yourself as a lotus flower in a gentle pond, surrounded by soft ripples of thought. The wind blows and the ripples move, but you remain rooted in the stillness of the water. Allow your thoughts to come and go, just as the wind moves through the flowers. Do not resist. Simply observe the flow of your mind, trusting that you are anchored in the present moment. The temple bells ring softly, echoing through the hills, their sound both distant and close. The air is thick with the fragrance of incense, the smoke curling upward in delicate spirals. A gentle rain falls, each droplet a small kiss upon the earth. The moss-covered stones of the temple courtyard are wet, and the bamboo leaves glisten with the sheen of moisture. This is the setting where the story unfolds, amidst the stillness of the temple, where the mind is calm and the heart is open. At the entrance to the temple, there stands an elderly monk named Haku. His robes are simple, faded from years of wear, but his face is serene and wise. His long white beard flows down like the branches of a tree, and his eyes are soft with the wisdom of many years spent in quiet contemplation. Despite his age, there is a liveliness in his gaze, a spark that speaks of the deep peace he has cultivated over a lifetime. One morning, a young man arrives at the temple. His face is tense, his body stiff with the weight of anxiety. He walks with purpose, but carries within him a restless energy, like a storm contained in a small vessel. His eyes are filled with questions, but not the peaceful questions of a seeker. They are questions of frustration, of a mind that cannot find rest. Haku sees the young man as he approaches and greets him with a gentle smile. "Young one," Haku says, his voice like a soft stream, "you look troubled. What brings you to the temple today?" The young man's brow furrows as he speaks. "Master, I seek peace. My mind is filled with endless thoughts, thoughts of fear, doubt, and worry. I have tried to meditate, but my mind never settles. It is as if the thoughts are like waves crashing against the shore, unending and fierce. Please, tell me how I can calm my mind." Haku nods slowly, his eyes reflecting a deep understanding. "Come," he says, "let us sit together and share a cup of tea." The young man is puzzled, but follows Haku into the temple's simple yet peaceful room, where a small wooden table is set in the center. Haku sits down, and a young man takes a seat opposite him. On the table is a small teapot with steam rising from it and two small cups. Haku pours the tea into the young man's cup, filling it nearly to the top. The young man watches the tea spill over the edge and into the saucer beneath. "Master," he says, "the cup is overflowing. You have poured too much tea. There is no room for more." Haku smiles, his eyes twinkling with the wisdom of experience. "And so it is with your mind. It is already full, filled with thoughts and worries. You ask for peace, yet there is no space for peace to enter because your mind is overflowing. Just as the tea must be poured into a cup that is empty, so too must your mind be emptied before peace can come." The young man looks at the overflowing cup, his hands trembling slightly. "But how do I empty my mind?" he asks. "How can I make space for peace when my thoughts are so loud and unceasing?" Haku picks up the cup and gently pours the tea into his own cup, allowing the excess to spill over and rest in the saucer below. "You must first observe your thoughts," he says softly. "Do not try to control them. Do not try to push them away. Simply notice them as you notice the tea spilling over. Do not hold on to the thoughts and do not judge them. Let them come and let them go without attachment. In this way, your mind begins to empty itself." The young man watches as Haku carefully places the cup back on the table, and the old monk gestures for him to drink. The steam rises from the tea, and the scent of the warm liquid fills the air. It is an offering of peace, a moment of quiet between teacher and student. The young man hesitates for a moment, then picks up the cup, slowly bringing it to his lips. He takes a small sip, the warmth of the tea spreading through his body, soothing him in ways words cannot. As he drinks, he begins to feel a soft stillness settle over him. His thoughts are still there, but they no longer grip him with such force. The tea, like the mindfulness Haku speaks of, is slowly filling the empty space in his mind, allowing peace to enter where once there was only noise. "Is it so simple?" the young man asks, his voice quieter now, as if the storm within him is calmed. "Do I only need to let my thoughts flow without clinging to them?" Haku nods. "Yes, the mind is like the cup. When it is empty, it can be filled. But when it is full, no new wisdom can enter. The practice is not to rid the mind of thoughts, but to let them come and go without attachment. Like the tea, you let them flow, allowing them to spill out as needed, without fear or resistance." The young man closes his eyes for a moment, allowing the words to sink into his heart. He feels the tension in his body begin to release, as if his mind is slowly becoming the still pond it once was. The tea in his cup is warm, but it is the warmth of acceptance, of letting go, that fills him. "Thank you, Master," he says quietly. "I see now. It is not that I must stop the thoughts, but that I must stop fighting them. I must let them flow without judgment or fear." Haku smiles gently, his heart full of compassion for the young man. "You have understood, my student. Remember this. Peace is not found by controlling the mind, but by accepting it as it is and allowing it to flow freely." The young man bows deeply, a gesture of gratitude and respect. As he rises, he feels lighter, as if the weight of his thoughts has been lifted, if only for a moment. He thanks Haku once more and walks out into the temple courtyard. The sound of the rain now gentle, like the soft rhythm of his own breathing. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly. Imagine your mind as a cup. Is it overflowing with thoughts, worries, and fears? Gently allow those thoughts to spill over one by one without clinging to them. Let them come and let them go, like tea flowing freely from the cup. In this stillness, notice how your mind begins to settle, as if making space for peace to enter. The sun begins its descent, casting a golden light over the temple grounds. The air is thick with the scent of wet earth, mingling with the fragrance of blooming plum trees. A soft breeze moves through the bamboo, its leaves whispering secrets from the past. The distant sound of a waterfall can be heard, its steady rush blending with the sound of crickets in the evening air. This is the moment of stillness before the night settles, and the time when the mind finds its deepest peace. It is here that we meet the monk Kaito, known for his quiet wisdom. His robes, though simple, carry the wear of many seasons, yet they seem to flow effortlessly with the grace of his movements. Kaito is a monk of deep contemplation, spending his days alone by the stream that runs beside the temple. His mind, like the stream, flows gently, yet it carries the wisdom of countless hours spent in silent reflection. One afternoon, as Kaito sits by the water, a young monk named Taro approaches him. Taro is new to the temple, his heart full of questions and his mind restless. He is eager to learn, but struggles with the constant noise of his thoughts, which seem to tug at him from every direction. Kaito looks up as Taro arrives, his eyes filled with understanding. "Taro," he says, his voice calm like the flow of the stream, "what brings you to the water today?" Taro hesitates, sitting down beside Kaito. "Master, my mind is a storm," he begins. "I have tried to meditate, to find peace, but my thoughts are like rocks in a rushing river. They block my path, and no matter how hard I try, I cannot push them aside. How can I find stillness when my thoughts are so heavy?" Kaito nods, as if he has heard this many times before. He gestures to the stream before them. "Look at the water," he says, "and tell me what you see." Taro watches the stream for a moment, the water flowing quickly over smooth stones, the surface rippling as it moves along its path. "I see the water moving, flowing quickly and rushing over the rocks," he replies. Kaito smiles softly. "Yes, the water flows over the stones, but notice how it does not resist the rocks. The stream moves around them, finding its path through the gaps, flowing with ease. It does not fight the rocks. It simply moves." Taro frowns slightly, still confused. "But my thoughts feel like those rocks. No matter how much I try to meditate, they block my mind, and I cannot find peace." Kaito's gaze softens, and he picks up a smooth stone from the ground, holding it in his hand. "These rocks," he says, "are like the thoughts in your mind. They come, and they can seem heavy, blocking your path. But notice this: the water does not try to control the rocks. It simply flows around them, accepting them as they are. In the same way, your thoughts are like these stones. They are not yours to control. They will come and go, but it is your choice how you respond to them." He places the stone gently back into the stream, watching as the water flows over it, moving around it with ease. "Your thoughts are like the stones in the stream. You cannot stop them from coming, but you can choose to let them pass. You can observe them without attachment and let them flow away just as the water flows around the rocks. Taro watches the water for a while, the stillness of the moment settling over him. The sound of the stream, gentle and unhurried, fills the air, and he begins to understand what Kaido means. The rocks do not control the water. They are simply part of the river. In the same way, his thoughts are simply part of his mind, and he does not need to fight them. He only needs to let them pass, like the water moving around the stones. But Master, Taro asks after a while, if my thoughts are like rocks, how can I ever find peace if they continue to come? Kaido smiles, his eyes full of kindness. The water does not resist the rocks, and the rocks do not resist the water. It is the nature of the stream to flow, and it is the nature of your thoughts to arise. They will come and go, like the water moving around the rocks. In the same way, you must learn to flow with your thoughts, to let them come and go without clinging to them or resisting them. In this way, peace will find you, just as the water finds its way around the stones. Taro sits quietly, the quiet flow of the stream a soothing presence. The wind picks up slightly, rustling the leaves of the trees, and the sound of the water becomes even more pronounced. Taro feels a lightness in his heart, as if the heaviness of his thoughts has begun to lift. The more he watches the water flow, the more he realizes that peace is not something to be found by controlling the mind, but by accepting the flow of thoughts as they are, allowing them to pass without resistance. "Thank you, Master," Taro says, his voice soft with gratitude. "I understand now. It is not my thoughts that I must stop, but my attachment to them. I will learn to let them flow as the water flows." Kaido nods, his face serene. Remember, Taro, peace is not found in the absence of thoughts, but in the acceptance of them. The stream does not struggle against the rocks, and the rocks do not struggle against the water. They simply coexist, and in that coexistence, there is harmony. Taro bows deeply, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the wisdom he has received. As he rises, he takes one last look at the stream, the water flowing gently around the stones, and he feels a new understanding blossoming within him. He knows that his thoughts will continue to come, but he no longer feels the need to fight them. He can simply watch them, letting them pass like the water flowing around the rocks. And in that watching, he will find peace. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine your thoughts as stones in a flowing stream. Do not try to stop the flow of the water, nor do you need to stop the arrival of the stones. Simply let the water move around them as your thoughts come and go. There is no need to resist them. Let them flow by, and in doing so, you will find the stillness beneath the surface of your mind. The moon is full tonight, casting a silver glow across the temple courtyard. The cool breeze rustles the leaves of the trees, and the scent of incense drifts gently through the air, carrying with it the timelessness of the teachings that have been passed down through the ages. A quiet stillness pervades the space, as if the world itself is taking a deep breath, waiting for the next moment to unfold. In the heart of the temple, a wise monk named Sojin sits beneath the gnarled branches of an ancient oak tree. His face, weathered with age, carries the deep serenity of one who has spent many years in contemplation. His robes are simple, but there is an aura of calm around him, a stillness that seems to settle on those who approach him. This evening, a young monk named Daichi has come to seek his guidance. Daichi is a novice, full of questions and uncertainties, his mind restless and eager for answers. Though he has meditated for some time, he still struggles with the nature of his thoughts, which seem to arise from nowhere, persistently and without end. As Daichi approaches Sojin, the older monk looks up at him, his eyes filled with quiet understanding. Daichi, Sojin says softly, "What brings you to the oak tree tonight?" Daichi kneels before him, his hands pressed together in respectful greeting. "Master, I have been meditating for many years, but my mind is still restless," he begins. "I try to focus, but my thoughts keep pulling me in different directions. I want to find peace, but I don't know how. Please, Master, help me understand." Sojin nods slowly, his eyes never leaving Daichi's face. "Daichi, do you hear the sound of the wind in the trees?" he asks. Daichi listens carefully, the soft rustling of the leaves in the evening breeze filling his ears. "Yes, Master, I hear it," he replies. Sojin's gaze softens. "Good. Now, I will ask you something. What is the sound of one hand clapping?" Daichi looks puzzled, his brow furrowing as he tries to understand the question. "Master, I do not understand. One hand clapping. How can that be?" Sojin smiles gently, as if he has expected this response. "Exactly," he says. "This is the point. You're trying to grasp something that cannot be grasped. You're trying to understand the ungraspable, to make sense of something that has no form. The mind is like this. It tries to hold onto every thought, to label it, to understand it. But thoughts, like the sound of one hand clapping, cannot be fully understood or controlled." Daichi sits in silence, the words sinking deep into his heart. He thinks about the question, the sound of one hand clapping. It is paradoxical, illogical, something his mind cannot fully comprehend. And yet, in that not knowing, he feels a shift in his understanding. Sojin continues, his voice calm and steady. "Your mind is like the hand clapping. It is constantly trying to make sense of the world, to label and judge, to hold on to one thought after another. But true peace comes when you stop trying to grasp, when you stop struggling to make sense of everything. The sound of one hand clapping is not something you can understand with the mind. It is something you must experience in stillness, in the acceptance of what is, without the need to control it." Daichi is silent for a long moment, the question lingering in his mind like a puzzle without a solution. And yet, as he sits there, something begins to shift within him. He realizes that it is not the answer to the question that matters. It is the space in which the question arises. The mind does not need to understand everything. In fact, peace is found not in understanding, but in letting go of the need to understand. "Master," Daichi says softly, his voice filled with new understanding, "I see now. It is not the thoughts themselves that disturb me, but my attachment to them. I try to control them, to make them make sense. But when I let go of that, when I stop trying to grasp them, they fade away like the wind in the trees. I do not need to understand everything." Sojin smiles, his eyes shining with quiet approval. "Exactly, Daichi. Peace is found in the acceptance of what is. The wind does not question the leaves as they fall, and the trees do not resist the breeze. In the same way, You must learn to let your thoughts come and go without attachment, without trying to grasp them or control them. This is the essence of mindfulness. Daichi bows deeply, a sense of peace settling over him. As he rises, he feels lighter, as though the burden of his thoughts has been lifted. He looks at the oak tree, its branches swaying gently in the breeze, and he listens to the rustling of the leaves. The question of one hand clapping no longer matters, for in that moment, he understands that peace is not something to be grasped. It is something to be experienced, just as the sound of the wind is heard without the need for explanation. Pause and reflect as you sit in stillness now. Imagine that you are listening to the sound of one hand clapping. There is no need to understand it, no need to grasp it. Simply allow the question to be, and in that space, notice the quiet stillness that arises. Let your thoughts come and go without clinging to them. In this acceptance, you will find peace, not through understanding, but through simply being. The early morning mist lingers in the air, wrapping the temple in a quiet embrace. The first light of dawn breaks through the trees, casting long shadows across the temple courtyard. The sound of distant birds chirping softly fills the air, and the gentle rustle of bamboo leaves dances with the wind, creating a soothing melody. In the midst of this tranquil morning, a young monk named Kiyo stands at the edge of the temple's bamboo grove. His robes are light and simple, and his expression is one of quiet contemplation. Kiyo is new to the temple, having only arrived a few months ago. He is eager to learn, but his mind, though well-intentioned, is still restless. He tries to meditate each day, but his thoughts continue to race like leaves caught in a storm. He has heard many teachings about letting go of control, but the idea remains elusive. How can one truly let go when the mind is filled with so many distractions? On this morning, Kiyo is standing still, listening to the wind as it moves through the bamboo. He closes his eyes for a moment, trying to feel the movement of the wind, but he still cannot quiet his mind. As he stands there, lost in thought, a wise elder named Tetsu approaches from behind. His steps are soft, his presence calm, and his eyes full of gentle wisdom. Tetsu stands beside Kiyo and watches the bamboo sway in the breeze. Kiyo, he says softly, "Do you see how the bamboo moves with the wind?" Kiyo opens his eyes, watching as the bamboo bends gently with each gust. "Yes, master," he replies. The bamboo moves, but it does not break. Tetsu smiles, his eyes glinting with quiet understanding. Exactly. The bamboo does not resist the wind. It bends with it, flowing with the breeze, and in doing so, it remains strong. Kiyo furrows his brow slightly. "But master, how can I do the same with my thoughts? I feel like I am constantly fighting them. No matter how hard I try to let go, they seem to pull me in different directions." Tetsu looks at Kiyo with kind eyes, his voice calm and steady. "Your mind is like the bamboo," he begins. "The wind represents the thoughts that come and go. When the wind blows gently, the bamboo sways with ease, and when the wind blows fiercely, the bamboo bends. But it does not resist the wind. It does not try to fight it. It simply bends, trusting that the wind will pass." Kiyo listens intently, his eyes focused on the bamboo that continues to sway in the breeze. Tetsu continues, In the same way, your thoughts come and go, and just like the bamboo, you must learn to bend with them, not fight against them. The more you try to force your mind to be still, the more you will struggle. But if you learn to let the thoughts come and go without attachment, just as the bamboo bends with the wind, you will find peace. Kyo takes a deep breath, the words settling deep within his heart. But how do I stop fighting my thoughts? How do I learn to let them pass without holding on to them? Tetsu reaches down and picks a small bamboo shoot from the ground, holding it in his hand. He studies it for a moment before speaking again. The bamboo does not think about how to bend with the wind. It simply does. It does not hold on to the breeze, nor does it try to control it. It accepts the wind as it is, and in doing so, it is free. Your mind is the same. When you stop trying to control your thoughts, when you stop holding on to them or pushing them away, you will find that they pass just like the wind. The thoughts will come, and they will go, but you will remain steady like the bamboo. Kyo takes in these words, allowing the quiet wisdom of Tetsu's teaching to wash over him. He looks once more at the bamboo, now swaying gently in the breeze. For the first time, he feels a shift within himself, a softening, a quiet acceptance. I think I understand, Kyo says slowly. It is not my thoughts that cause suffering, but my attachment to them. When I try to control them, I am like the bamboo resisting the wind. But when I let them come and go, without holding on to them, I can find peace. Tetsu nods, a gentle smile appearing on his face. Yes, Kyo, just like the bamboo, you must learn to bend with the wind, to flow with your thoughts, without clinging to them. When you do this, you will find that the thoughts no longer have the power to disturb you. They are just passing winds, and you, like the bamboo, are grounded in the present moment. Kyo feels a deep sense of gratitude for Tetsu's wisdom. As he stands in the courtyard, watching the bamboo sway in the wind, he realizes that the peace he seeks is not something that needs to be forced or controlled. It is already here in the gentle flow of the present moment, in the quiet acceptance of the thoughts that come and go. He no longer needs to resist his mind. He only needs to let it be. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly. Imagine yourself as the bamboo in a gentle breeze. The wind represents your thoughts, sometimes soft, sometimes strong. Do not try to resist them, nor try to control them. Simply let them pass, like the wind moving through the bamboo. In this flow, there is peace. Allow your thoughts to come and go, and in doing so, feel the stillness within. The night has fallen quietly over the temple, and the stars are scattered across the sky like tiny jewels. The air is cool and crisp, and the scent of damp earth rises from the path that winds through the temple's grounds. A soft light flickers in the distance, the warm glow of lanterns casting their light onto the stone steps that lead to the meditation hall. In the quiet of the evening, a young monk named Shoji sits by the side of the temple pond. His eyes are closed, his hands resting gently on his knees as he takes in the stillness around him. The moonlight reflects on the water's surface, making the pond appear like a mirror, calm and undisturbed. Shoji is deep in meditation, his thoughts like distant clouds, fleeting, passing, but never staying. Shoji has been training in the temple for some time, and though he has made progress, there are still moments when his mind feels like a whirlwind. He tries to quiet his thoughts, but they persist, racing through his mind like an ox charging through a field. How can one find peace in such a storm? Shoji sighs softly, the weight of his thoughts pressing on him. It is then that a quiet voice breaks through the stillness. "Young monk," the voice says, and Shoji opens his eyes to see an older monk standing at the edge of the pond. The older monk is tall, with a weathered face and a deep calm about him. His name is Kassen, and his wisdom is known throughout the temple. "Master Kassen," Shoji says, bowing respectfully, "I'm struggling with my mind. I try to meditate, but my thoughts are like an ox running wild, pulling me in all directions. I cannot seem to find peace." Kassen looks at Shoji with kind eyes, a knowing smile on his face. "Ah, the ox," he says, "a powerful creature, full of strength and energy. It can be both a source of great work and a cause of great disturbance." Shoji looks up at Kassen, his brow furrowing in confusion. "What do you mean, master?" Kassen gestures toward the distant path, where a lone ox is grazing peacefully under the moonlight. "The ox represents the mind," Kassen begins. "When it is wild and untamed, it pulls you in every direction, just as your thoughts do now. But when it is guided and allowed to move at its own pace, it can bring great peace. You must learn to tame the ox, not by force, but by patience and understanding." Shoji listens intently, but the analogy still feels distant. "But how can I tame the ox?" he asks. "My thoughts are so loud, so persistent. I feel as though I cannot control them." Kassen smiles gently. "You do not need to control the ox. You need to guide it, just as a skilled farmer guides an ox through the field. You cannot force the ox to move in a straight line, but you can show it the path, patiently, without anger or frustration. The same is true of your mind." He sits down beside Shoji, looking out over the pond. "When the ox is wild, it is because it has not learned the way. But when you show it kindness and patience, it will begin to follow. Your thoughts are the same. They will come, they will go, but they do not need to control you. You must guide them gently, without force. You must learn to observe them without becoming attached to them, just as the farmer observes the ox." Shoji feels a shift within him as he listens to Kassen's words. For the first time, he understands that the goal is not to fight the thoughts, but to gently guide them, to allow them to come and go without resistance. "Master," Shoji says, his voice soft, "so I do not need to stop my thoughts. I only need to observe them, like the farmer with his ox." Kassen nods. "Exactly. You do not need to control the ox, nor do you need to control your thoughts. You only need to guide them with patience and understanding. When you let go of the need to control, you will find that peace comes naturally." Shoji takes a deep breath, and for the first time in many weeks, he feels a sense of calm settle over him. The storm of his thoughts begins to fade, not because he has forced it, but because he has allowed it to pass, gently and without attachment. As Shoji sits there, watching the moonlight reflect on the pond, he feels the weight of his mind lighten. He no longer feels the need to fight against his thoughts. Instead, he allows them to come and go, like the ox grazing peacefully in the field. "Thank you, Master Kassen," Shoji says, his voice filled with gratitude. "I understand now. I do not need to control my thoughts, but to guide them with patience and acceptance." Kassen smiles, his eyes soft with wisdom. "You are learning, Shoji. Remember, The mind is like the ox. It has its own rhythm. Do not rush it. Let it move at its own pace, and you will find peace. Shoji bows deeply, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the teaching. As he rises, he feels lighter, as if the burden of his restless mind has been lifted. He watches the ox graze peacefully under the moonlight, and he realizes that peace is not something to be grasped, but something to be gently guided, just like the ox in the field. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine your thoughts as the ox in the field. They come and go, sometimes wild, sometimes calm. Do not try to force them into a particular shape. Simply observe them as they arise, without attachment, without resistance. Like the farmer guiding the ox, allow your mind to move at its own pace, gently and without force. The sun has begun its descent, casting a warm, golden glow across the temple courtyard. The sound of the wind carries with it the distant call of a bird, and the soft rustling of leaves in the trees fills the air. The temple stands still, as if it has been there for centuries, its stones weathered by time, but steadfast in their place. The atmosphere is calm, as if the world itself is taking a deep breath before nightfall. At the center of the temple courtyard sits a wise monk named Jiro. His face is serene, his eyes closed in deep contemplation. He is an old monk, but his presence is light, as if he carries the weight of wisdom without burden. His hands rest gently on his knees, and his breathing is slow and steady, in rhythm with the quiet world around him. A young monk named Haru approaches, his steps tentative as he walks into the courtyard. His mind is troubled, filled with questions and uncertainties. Haru has been practicing meditation for many months, but his thoughts still race, pulling him in every direction. He longs for the stillness that the older monks speak of, but it seems just beyond his grasp. Seeing Jiro sitting calmly, Haru approaches him and bows deeply. "Master Jiro," he says softly, "I seek your guidance. My mind is filled with so many thoughts. I try to meditate, but it feels as if my mind is a bowl overflowing with water. No matter how much I try, I cannot seem to empty it." Jiro opens his eyes slowly and looks at Haru with kind eyes. "Ah, the overflowing bowl," he says. "I understand, young one. But tell me, Haru, what is it that you're trying to fill this bowl with?" Haru hesitates for a moment, not entirely sure of his answer. "I'm trying to find peace, Master. I meditate, I breathe, I try to focus, but my thoughts keep coming. I want to be empty, to be free of these distractions." Jiro nods gently, his expression one of quiet understanding. "And when you seek peace, do you seek it outside of yourself, in the bowl you carry within, or do you seek it in the space between your thoughts?" Haru furrows his brow. "I do not understand, Master. How can I find peace in the space between my thoughts? I thought I needed to clear my mind of all thoughts." Jiro gestures to a small, simple bowl resting beside him on the ground. "This bowl, Haru, is empty," he says. "It is a vessel, open and ready to receive. But if you fill it with too many things, thoughts, worries, expectations, then there is no space left for peace. The bowl becomes too full. Just as you cannot fill the bowl if it is already full, you cannot experience peace if your mind is overflowing with distractions." Haru listens carefully, trying to understand. But Master, how can I empty my mind? It feels impossible. Jiro smiles softly. Emptying the mind is not about forcing the thoughts away, nor is it about striving for some ideal state of stillness. It is about creating space, about allowing the thoughts to come and go without attachment. Think of your mind as a bowl that is already full of water. Instead of trying to empty it all at once, simply allow the water to settle. As the water settles, the surface becomes clear. In the same way, when you stop grasping at your thoughts, when you allow them to pass without attachment, you create space for peace. Haru looks down at the bowl, its simplicity striking him. So, it is not about emptying the bowl completely, but about allowing space for peace to enter. Exactly, Jiro replies. Peace is already present, just as the empty bowl is already there. It is not something to be sought or attained. It is something to be allowed. Just as the water in the bowl settles when left undisturbed, so too do the thoughts in your mind when you cease to grasp at them. Haru sits in silence, contemplating Jiro's words. He takes a deep breath and focuses on the bowl beside him. The simplicity of it strikes him deeply. How something so empty can hold so much, and how the act of creating space allows for that fullness. After a long pause, Haru speaks again. Master, I think I understand. It is not the thoughts themselves that disturb me, but my desire to control them. I try so hard to empty my mind, but in doing so, I only fill it with more striving. I must learn to let go of that striving, to let my thoughts settle naturally. Jiro nods, a gentle smile appearing on his face. Yes, Haru, the more you strive, the more you create disturbance in the bowl. But when you let go, when you cease to grasp at the water, it finds its own way. The same is true with your mind. Let go of the striving, and peace will find you. Haru feels a lightness in his chest, a quiet understanding unfolding within him. He no longer needs to force his mind into stillness. He only needs to create the space for stillness to arise naturally. The water of his thoughts, like the water in the bowl, will settle when he stops striving to control it. Thank you, Master, Haru says softly, his voice filled with gratitude. I will remember your teaching. I do not need to empty my mind. I only need to allow the space for peace to enter. Jiro smiles warmly, his eyes filled with compassion. You are learning, Haru. Peace is not something to be grasped, but something to be allowed. The bowl is empty, and yet it can hold everything. In the same way, your mind is full, yet when you allow it to settle, it can hold peace. As Haru rises, he feels lighter, as if a weight has been lifted from him. The simplicity of the bowl and the wisdom it represents stays with him. He no longer feels the need to fight his thoughts or empty his mind. Instead, he creates the space for peace to enter, allowing his thoughts to come and go, like water settling in a bowl. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine your mind as a bowl. It is full, but not with striving or force. Simply allow the water to settle. Let your thoughts come and go without attachment, without resistance. In this space, peace can enter, just as the water in the bowl naturally settles when left undisturbed. The night is still, the sky cloudless, and the stars twinkle softly above the temple grounds. The air is cool with the gentle whisper of the wind, and the sound of the distant river flowing like a steady heartbeat, fills the silence. The temple is bathed in moonlight, and the peaceful rhythm of nature seems to align with the very pulse of the world itself. In the temple's garden, a young monk named Shiro stands by the riverbank, gazing out at the gentle flow of the water. The river, though calm, moves with an unhurried determination, winding its way through the land as it has for centuries. Shiro is deep in thought, his mind once again filled with a swirl of emotions and questions. Though he has been practicing mindfulness for a long time, his thoughts often pull him in many directions, like a small boat caught in the current. He watches the water flow, but his mind does not seem to quiet. He feels like a small boat tossed around in the river, at the mercy of the current. He wants to find peace, but the constant ebb and flow of his thoughts keep him from truly resting. It is then that an older monk named Ryu approaches him. Ryu is known for his calm demeanor and deep wisdom. A monk who has spent many years observing the river, the mountains, and the movements of his own heart. Ryu stands beside Shiro and looks out at the water. "Shiro," he says softly, his voice gentle, "do you see the river?" Shiro nods, still lost in his thoughts. "Yes, master. The river flows calmly, but I feel as though I am like a small boat, tossed about by the current. I cannot seem to find peace. My thoughts are like the water, moving swiftly and endlessly. I feel as though I am being carried along without control." Ryu smiles quietly, his eyes reflecting the depth of the river's flow. "Ah, the boat and the river," he says, a simple yet profound teaching. "Come, let us sit by the water and observe." The two monks sit together by the riverbank, their legs crossed in silence. Ryu gestures toward the small boat that floats near the shore, gently rocking with the rhythm of the current. "Shiro," Ryu begins, "do you see that boat? It is small, yet it floats upon the river without being swept away. It moves with the flow, not against it. The boat does not try to control the river, nor does it struggle against the current. It simply moves with the flow, trusting that the water will carry it to where it needs to go." Shiro looks at the boat, his eyes following its gentle movement. "But master," he says, "the boat is still at the mercy of the river. If the current is strong, the boat will be carried away." Ryu nods. "Yes, that is true. But notice this, the boat does not fight the current. It does not resist. It moves with it. The boat knows that the river is always flowing, and rather than struggle, it allows itself to be carried. In the same way, your thoughts will always come, just as the river will always flow. But when you stop struggling against them, when you stop trying to control them, you will find that they carry you gently, like the boat on the water." Shiro sits quietly, his mind still, as he watches the boat move with the current. He feels a shift within himself. The struggle to control his thoughts begins to fade, and he realizes that it is not the current of his mind that causes suffering, but his resistance to it. "You mean," Shiro says slowly, "that I do not need to stop my thoughts or fight against them. I only need to allow them to move through me, like the boat moves with the current." Ryu smiles, his face serene. "Yes, Shiro, the boat is not fighting the water, and you do not need to fight your thoughts. When you allow them to come and go without attachment, without struggling, you will find that they no longer have the power to carry you away. Like the boat, you will find that peace is found not in controlling the river, but in allowing yourself to move with it. Shiro closes his eyes, the teachings sinking deep within him. For the first time, he feels a deep sense of stillness, as if his mind is no longer a boat tossed by the current, but a vessel moving gently with the flow. He no longer feels the need to control the river, the thoughts that come and go, but instead, he feels a quiet trust in the flow of life itself. "Thank you, Master," Shiro says softly. "I understand now. I do not need to fight my thoughts. I only need to move with them, trusting the flow of the river." Ryu nods, his eyes filled with warmth. "You are learning, Shiro. Just as the boat moves with the river, so must you move with the flow of your thoughts. In this movement, there is peace. You do not need to control the current. You only need to allow yourself to be carried." Shiro rises, his heart light with understanding. As he looks out at the river, he realizes that peace is not something to be grasped or controlled. It is already present in the gentle flow of the water, in the quiet movement of the boat. All he needs to do is trust in the current, and in doing so, he will find his way. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine yourself as the small boat on the river. The current of your thoughts may be strong, but you do not need to fight it. Simply allow yourself to move with the flow, trusting that the river will carry you to where you need to go. In this trust, there is peace. Let your thoughts come and go, like the water flowing beneath you, and in that gentle movement, find the stillness. The night has deepened, and the temple courtyard is bathed in the soft glow of moonlight. The stars shimmer brightly in the sky, while the air is cool with a slight chill. The world feels at once expansive and intimate, a vast silence stretching across the earth, inviting a deep sense of peace. In the distance, the temple bells toll softly, marking the passing of time in this sacred place. In the midst of this serene night, a monk named Hoshi stands by the temple pond, gazing at the water's surface. The pond is still, the moon reflecting perfectly on the glass-like surface. Hoshi has often come to this spot to meditate, to quiet his mind, and tonight he stands still, contemplating the moon's reflection on the water. Though his gaze is steady, his mind is troubled. It is full of questions, of doubts about his practice, and a growing sense of dissatisfaction that lingers in his heart. He feels as if his thoughts are constantly pulling him away from the present, like ripples disturbing the calm surface of the pond. The more he tries to still his mind, the more it resists, and the more he struggles, the further peace seems to slip from his grasp. After a while, an older monk named Koji approaches. Koji has spent many years at the temple, his wisdom deep and quiet, like the steady flow of the river. He sees Hoshi standing by the pond, lost in thought, and joins him at the water's edge. "Hoshi," Koji says, his voice gentle, "what troubles you this evening?" Hoshi looks at Koji, his eyes filled with a mixture of frustration and confusion. "Master, I have been meditating for so long, yet my mind is still restless. I try to quiet the thoughts, but it is as if they are always there, like ripples in the water. I do not know how to find peace." Koji smiles softly, his gaze turning to the pond. "The moon," he says, "is reflected perfectly on the surface of the water, yet the moment a ripple is made, the reflection is disturbed. But when the water becomes still, the reflection is clear. Hoshi looks at the water, noticing how the moon seems to tremble on the surface, disturbed by the smallest movements of the water. But, Master, how can I keep the water still? The thoughts are like ripples. They come and go, and I cannot control them. Koji's eyes remain soft, filled with understanding. Ah, Hoshi, the water does not try to keep still. It is the nature of the water to ripple, just as it is the nature of your mind to think. The more you struggle against the thoughts, the more they ripple the surface. But when you stop struggling, when you let the water be, the ripples fade naturally. The moon's reflection does not try to stay still. It simply remains, waiting for the water to calm. Hoshi's brow furrows slightly. But Master, the ripples still come. How can I stop my thoughts from disturbing the peace of my mind? Koji gestures toward the pond, his hand moving gently over the surface of the water. The water does not stop the ripples from coming. It simply allows them to pass. You do not need to stop your thoughts, Hoshi. You need to stop resisting them. Just as the moon is always reflected in the water, peace is always present within you. When you stop trying to control your thoughts, when you let them come and go without attachment, you will find that peace remains, just as the moon remains in the water. Hoshi stands in silence, contemplating Koji's words. For a moment, he watches the water, observing how the ripples gradually fade, leaving the surface still again. He realizes that peace is not something to be attained by forcing his thoughts to stop. It is already there, within him, waiting to be revealed when he stops resisting it. Master, Hoshi says softly, I understand now. I do not need to stop my thoughts or make them go away. I only need to let them come and go without attachment, like ripples in the water. And in that space, I will find the stillness that is always there. Koji smiles, his eyes full of quiet approval. Yes, Hoshi, peace is not found in the absence of thoughts, but in the acceptance of them. The moon is always reflected in the water, even when the ripples come. In the same way, peace is always within you, even when thoughts arise. Simply let them come and let them go without grasping or judging. Hoshi stands still, feeling the weight of Koji's words sink deep within him. He watches the water, the ripples now gone, leaving the reflection of the moon clear and serene. The stillness of the pond mirrors the stillness beginning to take root within him. He no longer needs to struggle. He can simply let the thoughts come and go, like ripples on the water's surface, knowing that peace will always remain, just as the moon's reflection remains on the still water. Thank you, Master, Hoshi says quietly, his voice filled with gratitude. I will remember your teaching. Peace is always here, in the space between the thoughts, in the stillness of the mind. Koji nods, a soft smile on his face. May you always see the reflection of the moon, Hoshi, no matter how many ripples arise. Peace is not something to be sought. It is already within you, waiting for you to notice. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine your mind as the surface of the pond. Thoughts may arise like ripples on the water, but do not try to stop them. Simply allow them to come and go, like the ripples fading into stillness. In that space, notice the reflection of the moon. Peace always present, waiting for you to see it. Allow your thoughts to settle, and in the stillness, feel the peace that is already there. The morning is still, and the air is filled with the faint scent of pine as the sun rises gently over the horizon. The temple courtyard is quiet. The only sound the soft rustling of leaves as a breeze stirs the trees. The stone steps leading to the meditation hall are cool to the touch, and the first rays of light reflect off the surface of the temple pond, casting a soft glow on the water surface. The world feels calm, as if waiting for something gentle and profound to unfold. In the center of the courtyard, a young monk named Rin sits cross-legged, his eyes closed in meditation. His posture is perfect, his body still, yet his mind is not as peaceful as his outward form might suggest. Thoughts come and go, like fleeting shadows in the corner of his mind, and though he tries to let them pass, they linger like an itch he cannot scratch. Rin has been practicing for many years, but the restlessness within him persists. He struggles with the idea of control over his thoughts, his emotions, his actions. And the more he tries to master them, the more they seem to slip away like water between his fingers. As he sits there, struggling to find peace, an older monk named Zenji approaches him. Zenji has spent many years in meditation and study, and his presence is one of quiet authority. He sees Rin's troubled expression and sits down beside him, his movements slow and deliberate. "Rin," Zenji says softly, "what weighs on your heart?" Rin opens his eyes and looks at Zenji, his expression a mixture of frustration and uncertainty. "Master, I have been practicing for so long, yet my mind is still restless. I try to control my thoughts, to let go of my desires, but it feels as though I am failing. No matter how hard I try, the restlessness remains. I feel like I'm holding on to something that I cannot grasp." Zenji nods gently, his eyes full of understanding. He reaches into his robes and pulls out a small teacup. It's porcelain, delicate and finely crafted. He holds it out to Rin. "Rin," Zenji says, "do you see this teacup?" Rin nods, his eyes focused on the cup in Zenji's hand. "Yes, master. It is beautiful." Zenji smiles, then, in a single swift motion, he lets the teacup slip from his fingers and fall to the ground. It shatters into pieces, the sound of breaking porcelain ringing through the quiet courtyard. Rin gasps in shock. "Master, why did you do that?" Zenji looks at the shattered pieces of the teacup, his expression calm. "Rin," he says softly, "this teacup, like your mind, is fragile. It is easily broken, and yet we often hold on to it with great care, trying to keep it whole, trying to control it. But in doing so, we create tension. We live in fear of the break, and when it happens, we feel as though we have failed." Rin watches the broken pieces, his heart heavy. But the teacup is broken. It cannot be repaired. Zenji nods. "Yes, it is broken, but is it any less beautiful now in its brokenness?" Rin is silent for a moment, contemplating the question. He sees the pieces scattered on the ground, and he realizes that the teacup is no less beautiful now than it was before. In its fragility, it has taught him a deeper lesson. "No, master," Rin replies softly. "It is still beautiful." Zenji smiles, his eyes twinkling with quiet wisdom. "Exactly. The teacup is broken, but it is still whole in its imperfection. Your mind, too, is like this teacup. You may try to control it, to keep it perfect, but in doing so, you create a tension that prevents peace from entering. When you stop trying to control the mind, when you let go of the need for perfection, you will see that there is beauty in the brokenness, peace in the imperfection. Rin's heart softens as he takes in Zenji's words. He understands now that the struggle to control his thoughts has only created more unrest within him. Like the teacup, his mind is fragile, and it does not need to be perfect to be whole. The brokenness is not a failure. It is a part of the process of letting go. Master, Rin says, his voice filled with newfound clarity, I see now. I do not need to control my mind, nor do I need to be perfect. I only need to accept it as it is, in its brokenness, in its imperfection. Zenji nods, his smile serene. Yes, Rin, peace is not found in the pursuit of perfection, but in the acceptance of imperfection. Just as the teacup is beautiful even in its brokenness, so too is your mind beautiful in its imperfection. Let go of the need to control, and you will find the peace you seek. Rin bows deeply, feeling a profound sense of release. He no longer feels the need to control his thoughts or his emotions. He understands that peace is found in the acceptance of imperfection, in the willingness to let go and allow things to be as they are. As Rin rises, he looks at the broken pieces of the teacup on the ground. The moonlight shines on them, and for a moment, they sparkle like fragments of a hidden truth. He understands now that it is not the brokenness of the teacup that defines its beauty, but the way it is seen in the light of acceptance. In the same way, his thoughts are not his enemy. They're simply part of the flow of life, and by accepting them as they are, he can find peace. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine your mind as a teacup, fragile, imperfect, yet full of beauty. Do not try to control it or perfect it. Simply allow it to be as it is, in its brokenness and wholeness. Accept the thoughts that come and let them go, just as the pieces of the teacup lie on the ground, no longer needing to be whole to be beautiful. The early morning light spills softly across the temple grounds, casting long shadows from the tall pine trees that stand sentinel in the courtyard. The air is cool and crisp, carrying the earthy scent of moss and leaves, while the soft murmur of the wind stirs the branches above. The temple, old and wise, holds within its walls the silence of many years, years of teachings, of growth, and of stillness. At the edge of the temple garden, an ancient tree stands, its roots deep in the soil, its trunk strong and twisted with age. The branches stretch wide, offering shade and shelter to those who sit beneath it. A young monk named Eiji sits at the base of the tree, his eyes closed in quiet meditation. His posture is still, but his mind is not. Thoughts swirl in his mind, fleeting and restless, like the wind that rustles the leaves above. Eiji has been meditating for many seasons, but the constant noise of his thoughts still pulls him away from the present moment. He tries to focus, but the distractions of his mind seem like stones in his path, unyielding and heavy. No matter how much he practices, the weight of his thoughts remains. After a time, an elder monk named Takashi approaches, his steps slow but steady. Takashi has spent many years in silent contemplation, observing the world around him with the stillness of the earth itself. He sees AG sitting beneath the tree, his brow furrowed in frustration, and he sits down beside him. AG, Takashi says gently, his voice like the soft rustle of the leaves. What troubles you, my student? AG opens his eyes, a look of frustration crossing his face. Master, I have been meditating for so long, but my thoughts still plague me. They come like stones in my path, heavy and unyielding. I try to still my mind, but it feels as though I am constantly fighting against them. Takashi looks at the tree beside them, its branches swaying gently in the wind. Do you see the tree, AG? He asks. AG nods, still uncertain of what Takashi is leading to. Yes, master, it is strong and rooted in the ground. Takashi smiles softly. Yes, the tree is rooted. Its roots go deep into the earth, and its branches stretch high into the sky. But notice this, the tree does not try to control the wind. It does not fight the storm when it comes. It simply bends and moves with it. The tree knows that the wind will pass, just as your thoughts will pass. AG looks at the tree, its branches swaying gently in the breeze. He understands what Takashi is saying, but the weight of his own thoughts feels so much heavier. But master, he says softly, my thoughts feel like stones, not like the wind. They feel like obstacles that block my path. Takashi nods slowly, as if he has been waiting for this question. He gestures toward a large stone that lies near the edge of the garden. Do you see this stone, AG? AG nods. Yes, master. It is heavy and solid. Takashi smiles gently. The stone is like your thoughts. It is heavy, unyielding, and it may seem like an obstacle in your path. But here is the truth. Just as the tree does not fight the wind, you do not need to fight your thoughts. You do not need to push the stone away. You only need to notice it and allow it to be. Just as the tree moves with the wind, your mind can move with your thoughts. AG sits in silence for a long moment, the weight of Takashi's words settling deep within him. He looks at the stone and then at the tree. The tree does not resist the wind, and the stone does not resist the tree. They simply are. In that stillness, AG realizes that the struggle is not in trying to remove the stone, but in trying to control it. When he stops fighting against his thoughts, when he simply observes them, they lose their power over him. Takashi continues, his voice calm and steady. You see, AG, peace is not found in the absence of obstacles. It is found in the acceptance of them. The tree does not resist the storm, nor does it wish for the wind to stop. It simply bends with the wind, trusting that it will pass. Your thoughts are the same. They will come and go, but they do not need to control you. You only need to observe them, as the tree observes the wind, and in that observation, you will find peace. AG's heart softens, and for the first time, he feels a deep sense of release. He no longer needs to push his thoughts away or fight against them. He can simply allow them to come, to pass, and in that acceptance, he will find peace. Thank you, Master, AG says quietly, his voice filled with gratitude. I understand now. I do not need to fight my thoughts. I only need to accept them as they are, like the tree bends with the wind. Takashi nods, his eyes full of quiet approval. You are learning, AG. Remember, peace is not found in the absence of obstacles, but in the way you respond to them. Like the tree, bend with the storm, and you will find that the wind passes, leaving only stillness in its wake. Ag bows deeply, a deep sense of understanding blooming in his heart. As he rises and walks away from the tree, he feels lighter, as though the weight of his thoughts has been lifted. He understands now that peace is not about eliminating the obstacles, but about learning to move with them, just as the tree moves with the wind. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine yourself as the tree, rooted deeply in the earth, your branches swaying gently with the breeze. Your thoughts are like the wind that moves through your mind. Do not resist them, but allow them to come and go. In this gentle acceptance, you will find peace, just as the tree finds peace in the movement of the wind. The morning sun breaks through the mist, casting soft rays of light over the temple grounds. The air is fresh with the scent of earth and pine, and the gentle rustling of leaves in the wind creates a melody of quiet serenity. The stone path that winds through the garden is bathed in a soft, golden light, leading to the temple's entrance, where silence hangs in the air like a sacred presence. In the temple garden, a monk named Taro walks slowly along the path, his robe swishing gently with each step. Taro has been a monk for many years, and he has spent countless hours in meditation. Yet, despite his practice, his mind often feels like a stone, heavy, solid, and unmoving. His thoughts are like obstacles in his path, weighing him down, and no matter how much he tries to meditate, they persist. Today, as Taro walks along the stone path, he notices a large rock lying across the way. The stone is heavy, its surface rough and unyielding. For a moment, he stops, staring at the stone in frustration. It seems to block his way, and in his mind, it becomes a symbol of the many obstacles he feels within himself. His doubts, his restless thoughts, his attachments. Taro stands still, looking at the stone, feeling the weight of his mind pressing upon him. It is then that an older monk named Daichi appears, walking slowly toward Taro. Daichi is known for his calm demeanor, his ability to remain centered in the face of any storm. He sees Taro standing before the stone, his gaze fixed on it, and he stops beside him. "Taro," Daichi says softly, his voice gentle but filled with wisdom. "What troubles you, my young friend?" Taro looks up at Daichi, his expression heavy with frustration. "Master, my mind is like this stone. It is heavy, unmoving, and it seems to block my path. I try to meditate, but my thoughts keep rising like obstacles. I cannot find peace. How can I move forward when my mind feels like this stone?" Daichi looks down at the stone for a moment, then back at Taro. "Ah, the stone on the path," Daichi says, his voice calm. "Tell me, Taro, what happens when you encounter an obstacle on the path? Do you stand before it, frustrated, unable to move?" Taro frowns, not fully understanding the question. "Well, yes, master. When something blocks my path, I feel as though I cannot go forward." Daichi smiles gently, his eyes twinkling with quiet understanding. "And yet, Taro, what if I told you that the stone is not the obstacle? It is how you respond to it that creates the struggle. If you stand before the stone and push against it with all your strength, you will remain where you are. But if you stop pushing, if you stop resisting the stone, you will see that the path is still there, waiting for you to walk upon it." Taro looks at Daichi, the questions still lingering in his mind. But Master, how can I stop resisting my thoughts? They're like stones in my path, always in my way. Daichi gestures toward the stone on the path and then toward the horizon. The stone is not the obstacle. The obstacle is your attachment to the stone. You see it as something that must be moved, something that must be controlled. But what if you simply acknowledged the stone and moved around it without struggle? Taro looks at the stone again, and for the first time, he sees it in a new light. Instead of seeing it as something to be fought, he begins to see it as part of the path, a natural part of the journey. Master, Taro says slowly, are you saying that I do not need to control my thoughts, but only to acknowledge them and let them pass? Daichi nods, his face serene. Yes, the thoughts, like the stone, are a part of your path. They will come and they will go. But the more you fight them, the more they will weigh you down. When you stop resisting, when you let go of the need to control, you will find that the path continues, just as it always has. You do not need to push against the stone. You only need to walk around it. Taro feels a deep shift within himself. He no longer needs to control the thoughts that arise in his mind. He only needs to accept them, acknowledge them, and move forward. In that acceptance, he finds the freedom to continue his journey, unburdened by the need to control or resist. Thank you, Master, Taro says softly, his voice filled with gratitude. I understand now. The stone is not the obstacle. My resistance to it is. Daichi smiles warmly, his eyes filled with quiet approval. Exactly, Taro. Peace is not found in the absence of obstacles, but in how we respond to them. The stone on the path is not a hindrance. It is an opportunity to practice letting go, to practice moving forward despite the obstacles. When you let go of the struggle, you will see that the path is always open, always available to you. Taro stands tall, feeling a deep sense of peace settle within him. He looks at the stone on the path, and instead of seeing it as a barrier, he sees it as part of the journey. With a quiet smile, he steps around it, continuing along the path, no longer burdened by the weight of resistance. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine yourself walking along a path. Along the way, you encounter obstacles, thoughts, worries, distractions. These are like the stones in the path. Do not resist them. Instead, acknowledge them and move forward, knowing that peace is found not in the absence of obstacles, but in how you respond to them. Let go of the need to fight against the stones and continue your journey with ease. The night has fallen quietly over the temple, and the air is cool and crisp, filled with the scent of the earth and the distant hum of insects. The stars are scattered across the sky like countless points of light, and the moon casts a gentle glow across the temple courtyard. The world feels still, and yet there's an underlying energy, soft, subtle, and deep, that moves through everything. At the edge of the temple grounds, a young monk named Kento walks slowly through the garden. His steps are soft, and his mind is heavy with questions. Kenta has been on this path for many years, but the darkness within him still lingers. It is not the darkness of the night, but the darkness of his own heart, his fears, his doubts, and his deep sense of uncertainty. Despite his efforts, he cannot seem to shake the shadows that follow him, even in the moments of stillness. As Kenta walks, he sees an old monk named Soji sitting quietly by the temple's stone lantern. The lantern's light flickers gently, casting long shadows on the ground. Soji's posture is calm, and his face is serene, as if he is in complete harmony with the world around him. Kenta approaches quietly and sits beside him, his heart heavy with the weight of his questions. "Master Soji," Kenta says softly, his voice tinged with frustration, "I have been meditating for so long, but the darkness in my heart does not fade. It is as though my mind is clouded, and no matter how much I practice, I cannot find the light. How can I find peace when the shadows within me persist?" Soji looks at Kenta with kind eyes, his face gentle but wise. He gazes at the flickering lantern in front of them and then turns his gaze back to Kenta. "Do you see this lantern, Kenta?" he asks. Kenta looks at the lantern, its flame dancing in the still air. "Yes, master, I see the light." Soji nods, and yet, even with the lantern's light, the shadows remain. The lantern does not push the darkness away. It simply illuminates the space around it, casting light where it is needed. The darkness is not gone, but the light reveals it for what it is. Kenta looks at the shadows on the ground, stretching long and still in the moonlight. "But master, how can the darkness remain when the light is so small? How can I find peace when the shadows are so great?" Soji smiles softly, his eyes filled with quiet wisdom. The lantern does not need to banish the darkness. It only needs to illuminate it. The darkness cannot exist without the light, just as the light cannot exist without the darkness. They are not opposing forces. They are two sides of the same coin, and in their coexistence, they create balance. Kenta listens carefully, trying to understand. "But master, what if the darkness feels too much? What if it overwhelms the light?" Soji's voice is steady and calm. "The darkness is not something to fear, Kenta. It is simply the absence of light. And when the light shines, the darkness cannot remain. You do not need to force the darkness away. You only need to allow the light to shine, to let it illuminate the space within you. The more you try to fight the darkness, the more it will resist. But when you allow the light to come, without expectation, without fear, it will naturally dispel the shadows." Kenta sits in silence, his heart softening as Soji's words sink in. He realizes that his struggle with the darkness within him has only made it stronger. In his fear, he has tried to force it away, to push it into the corners of his heart. But in doing so, he has only given it more power. What he needs is not to fight the darkness, but to allow the light to shine through, to let it illuminate the shadows and see them for what they truly are. "Master," Kenta says quietly, "I understand now. I do not need to fight the darkness within me. I only need to allow the light to shine, to let it illuminate the shadows, so that they are no longer something to fear." Soji smiles gently, his eyes filled with compassion. "Yes, Kenta, the light is always within you. It is not something you need to create. It is already there, waiting for you to notice. When you stop struggling, when you allow the light to shine naturally, the darkness will fade on its own." Kenta feels a deep sense of peace settle over him. The weight of his fears and doubts begins to lift, not because the darkness is gone, but because he has learned to allow the light to shine through them. He looks at the flickering lantern, and in its light, he sees the shadows for what they are: temporary, fleeting, and not to be feared. "Thank you, Master," Kenta says softly, his voice filled with gratitude. "I will remember your teaching. I do not need to banish the darkness. I only need to let the light shine." Soji nods, his face serene. "May you always carry the light with you, Kenta, and may you see the shadows for what they are, part of the journey, but not the destination." As Kenta rises, he feels a new sense of freedom within him. He no longer needs to fight against the darkness. He simply needs to allow the light to shine through, and in doing so, he will find peace. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine yourself as the lantern. The light within you shines steadily, illuminating the darkness in your mind. The shadows may still be present, but they're no longer something to fear. Simply allow the light to shine, and in that light, the darkness will lose its power. The temple is quiet this evening, the sounds of the outside world muffled by the thick stone walls that have stood for centuries. Inside, the flickering light of candles casts long, dancing shadows across the floor, and a faint scent of incense hangs in the air, carrying a sense of reverence and calm. The stillness of the temple is profound, like a deep breath taken in the midst of an ever-moving world. In the center of the temple's meditation hall, a monk named Yudo sits on a cushion, his eyes closed in deep meditation. His posture is perfect, yet his mind is restless. His thoughts swirl like leaves caught in a windstorm, confused, turbulent, and relentless. He has been practicing for many years, and yet he still struggles with the same inner turmoil. The more he tries to still his mind, the more it resists, as though something within him is reaching out for understanding, but it can never be fully grasped. Yudo exhales deeply, frustrated with his own mind. He opens his eyes, the candlelight flickering in the darkness of the hall. He stands up slowly, his hands still resting at his sides, and walks over to the far wall where an elder monk, Ryo, is sitting quietly, observing the hall. "Master Ryo," Yudo says softly, his voice tinged with the frustration he feels inside. "I've been practicing for so long, but my mind does not settle. I sit in meditation, and yet the turmoil within me does not fade. It is as if I am trying to fill a cup that cannot hold the water." Ryo looks at Yudo with calm, unblinking eyes, his expression gentle yet wise. He nods slowly, acknowledging the frustration in Yudo's words. "Yudo," Ryo says quietly, "the hall is empty, yet it is full. Do you see?" Yudo looks at the large hall, the walls lined with ancient wooden beams, the space vast and open. "Yes, Master. The hall is empty. There is nothing in it." Ryo smiles gently. "Exactly. And yet, despite the emptiness, the hall can hold everything. It can hold the air, the sound of your breath, the flickering of the candles. The emptiness of the hall is not a void. It is a space of possibility. Do you understand?" Yudo's brow furrows slightly as he contemplates Ryo's words. "But Master, if the hall is empty, how can it hold anything? How can my mind be like this hall if it is so full of thoughts?" Ryo's gaze softens, and he gestures to the room around them. When the hall is empty, it is not lacking. It is simply open. When you fill it with what is needed, it becomes full of sound, full of light, full of the present moment. The same is true with your mind. It is not the thoughts that disturb you. It is your attachment to them. Your mind is like this empty hall. It has the capacity to hold everything, but must be open without resistance for the thoughts to flow through. When you try to hold on to the thoughts, when you try to fill the mind with more thoughts or force them away, you're like trying to fill a cup that has no space. But when you let go, the mind becomes open like this empty hall, and it can hold everything without struggle. Yudo stands still for a moment, the weight of Rio's words sinking deep within him. He looks at the hall, the vast emptiness before him, and something shifts inside him. He realizes that he has been trying too hard, trying to control the flow of his thoughts, trying to fill his mind with peace rather than letting peace fill the space. Master, Yudo says softly, his voice now more clear. So, you're saying that peace is not something I must force, but something that arises when I simply let go of the need to control my thoughts. Rio nods, his eyes filled with quiet approval. Yes, Yudo, the mind is like this hall. It is not empty in a way that is lacking. It is open, receptive. When you stop struggling with the thoughts, when you stop filling it with resistance, you will find that peace will fill the space naturally, like the air in the hall, like the light in the candles. Yudo closes his eyes for a moment, the weight of his frustration lifting as he begins to understand. He does not need to force his thoughts away, nor does he need to fill his mind with more. He simply needs to allow it to be open, allowing the peace to come naturally, like the space in the hall that is ready to receive. Thank you, Master, Yudo says quietly, his heart filled with gratitude. I understand now. My mind is not the enemy. It is simply a space that needs to be open, without resistance, to receive peace. Rio smiles, his eyes serene. Exactly, Yudo. The mind is not a battleground. It is a space of possibility. When you stop struggling, when you stop filling it with more thoughts, you will find that peace has always been there, waiting to fill the space. Yudo bows deeply, feeling a new sense of clarity and lightness in his heart. As he stands and walks toward the open hall, he realizes that the emptiness he has been trying to fill is not something to be feared, but something to be embraced. His mind is like the empty hall, open, receptive, ready to receive peace. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine your mind as an empty hall. It is not a void or an emptiness to be feared, but a space of possibility. Allow your thoughts to come and go, like the air moving through the hall. Do not try to fill your mind with anything. Simply let it be open, and in that openness, feel the peace that already exists within you. The evening sky is painted with hues of soft purple and gold as the sun begins to set behind the distant mountains. The temple is bathed in the golden glow of dusk, and the sound of the river flowing gently nearby fills the air with a rhythmic, soothing cadence. The world is transitioning from day to night, and the air is cool, carrying the promise of stillness that evening brings. At the riverbank, a monk named Takumi stands silently, his robes gently swaying in the breeze. His gaze is fixed on the river, its surface reflecting the colors of the sky above. The river flows without haste, winding its way through the landscape, and Takumi feels a sense of peace in the movement of the water. Yet, despite the calmness of the river, there is an unsettled feeling within him, a deep yearning for understanding. He feels like a small drop of water in the vast river of life, uncertain of his place, unsure of the path ahead. As Takumi stands in quiet contemplation, an elder monk named Tetsuo approaches. Tetsuo has walked many paths in his life, and his wisdom is deep, like the stillness that lies beneath the surface of the flowing river. He stands beside Takumi, his eyes following the river's flow. "Takumi," Tetsuo says softly, "what troubles you this evening?" Takumi sighs, his voice tinged with uncertainty. "Master, I feel as though I am lost. I see the river flowing so steadily, so purposefully, and yet I feel like a single drop of water, lost in the vastness of the current. I wonder if my life has meaning, if my small actions can truly make a difference. How can one small drop be a part of something as vast as this river?" Tetsuo smiles, his eyes filled with understanding. He gestures toward the river, where the water moves gently, never stopping, always flowing forward. "Takumi," Tetsuo begins, "do you see how the river flows, carrying each drop along with it? Each drop of water is part of the whole. Without the drops, the river would not be the river. And without the river, the drops would have no path. They exist together, each supporting the other, each a part of the greater whole. Your life is the same. Though you may feel like a single drop, your actions, your presence are part of the greater river of life. You are never separate from the whole. You are the river, and the river is you." Takumi listens carefully, trying to absorb the depth of Tetsuo's words. He watches the water, seeing how each drop flows in harmony with the others, creating the current that carries them all forward. "But Master," Takumi says after a pause, "how can my small actions, my fleeting moments, matter in the grand river of life?" Tetsuo's gaze softens as he turns to Takumi. "Every drop matters, Takumi. The river is made of countless drops, each flowing along its path. Without each one, the river would be incomplete. Your actions, no matter how small they may seem, are like the drops in the river. They shape the flow, they contribute to the whole. It is not the size of the drop that matters, but its place in the flow. You are part of something much larger than you realize." Takumi's heart begins to soften as he reflects on Tetsuo's words. He feels a quiet understanding arise within him. He no longer feels like a solitary drop lost in the vast river. He feels connected to the flow, a part of something greater, each moment an opportunity to contribute to the greater whole. "Master," Takumi says quietly, "I understand now. I do not need to be something greater to make a difference. I simply need to flow with the river, to be part of the flow, and trust that my small actions are part of the larger path." Tetsuo nods, his face serene. "Yes, Takumi. The river flows without resistance, without hesitation. It trusts in the journey, knowing that each drop, no matter how small, is necessary to create the whole. Your life is like the river. You do not need to force it. You need only to allow it to flow with trust and with purpose." Takumi stands in silence for a while, looking at the river and feeling the truth of Tetsuo's words sink deeply into his heart. He realizes that his life, like the river, is part of a greater current, and that even the smallest drop, his actions, his choices, contributes to the flow. There is no need to struggle, No need to question his place. He is simply part of the whole, moving forward with the current of life. Thank you, Master, Takumi says with a newfound peace in his heart. I will remember your teaching. I am part of the river, and my actions, no matter how small, matter. Tetsuo smiles, his eyes warm with approval. You are learning, Takumi. Trust in the flow, and you will find peace. You are never separate from the river. You are always part of it. As Takumi rises, he feels a deep sense of calm within him. He looks at the flowing river one last time, knowing that he too is part of its current. There is no need to resist, no need to force. He is simply a drop of water in the great river of life, flowing steadily forward. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine yourself as a drop of water in a river. You are part of something much greater than yourself. Your actions, your presence matter no matter how small they seem. Allow yourself to flow with the current of life, trusting that you are exactly where you need to be. In that trust, you'll find peace. The temple is bathed in the soft light of early morning, the gentle glow of the rising sun casting long shadows over the stone courtyard. The air is cool and crisp, with a hint of mist still lingering in the corners of the garden. The sound of distant birds fills the air, while the temple stands in quiet solitude, as if it has always existed in this sacred stillness. In a meditation hall, a young monk named Hiroki is sitting cross-legged on his cushion, his hands resting gently on his knees. His posture is perfect, yet his mind is turbulent. Thoughts swirl through his mind like a whirlwind, chaotic, loud, and unrelenting. Despite his best efforts to still his mind, he feels trapped in the noise of his own thoughts. His heart longs for peace, but it seems just out of reach, like a distant melody that he cannot quite hear. Hiroki closes his eyes, takes a deep breath, and exhales slowly, but still his thoughts continue to race. He feels frustration building within him, the pressure of his inner turmoil intensifying. No matter how still he tries to be, the noise in his mind refuses to quiet. It is then that an elder monk named Kiyoshi enters the hall. Kiyoshi is known for his serene presence and deep wisdom, and his steps are slow, measured, each one deliberate and full of grace. He sees Hiroki sitting in meditation, his face tense, and approaches quietly, standing beside him. "Hiroki," Kiyoshi says softly, his voice gentle but firm, "what is troubling you?" Hiroki opens his eyes, and his frustration spills out. "Master, my mind is like a bell ringing endlessly. I try to meditate, but the thoughts keep coming, loud and constant. I cannot find peace. I do not know how to silence the noise." Kiyoshi stands quietly for a moment, observing Hiroki's agitation. He then walks over to the large temple bell that hangs near the entrance, its bronze surface glowing softly in the light. He strikes the bell with a gentle but firm blow, and the sound reverberates throughout the hall, deep and resonant. "The bell rings," Kiyoshi says calmly, "but do you hear it clearly?" Hiroki listens to the ringing, the sound filling the room and bouncing off the walls. It is loud, clear, and persistent. "Yes, master." The sound is strong and constant. Kiyoshi smiles, his eyes wise and understanding. The bell rings, but when it has finished, what happens to the sound? Hiroki is silent for a moment, contemplating the question. It fades, he says, his voice quiet. The sound lingers for a moment, but then it fades into silence. Exactly, Kiyoshi says softly. The sound of the bell is like your thoughts. They come, loud and clear, but they do not last. The more you try to silence the bell, the more you will become frustrated. But when you allow the sound to come and go, when you do not resist it, it will fade on its own, just as the bell's ringing fades into silence. Hiroki looks at the bell, the sound of its ringing still echoing in his mind. He feels the weight of Kiyoshi's words sinking in, and a deep understanding begins to form within him. So, Master, Hiroki asks slowly, I do not need to stop my thoughts. I only need to let them come and go, without trying to control them. Kiyoshi nods, his eyes kind but unwavering. Yes, Hiroki, your thoughts are like the bells ringing. They will come and they will go, but when you stop fighting them, when you stop trying to control them, you'll find that peace follows naturally. Like the sound of the bell, your thoughts arise, but they do not last. If you do not hold on to them, if you do not try to make them disappear, they will fade on their own. Hiroki sits in stillness, the truth of Kiyoshi's words unfolding like a gentle flower within him. He no longer needs to struggle with the ringing bell of his thoughts. He simply needs to allow them to come and go, to observe them without attachment. In that observation, he finds the peace he has been seeking. Thank you, Master, Hiroki says softly, his voice filled with gratitude. I understand now. I do not need to silence my thoughts. I only need to let them fade like the sound of the bell. Kiyoshi smiles, his face radiating warmth and approval. You are learning, Hiroki. Remember, the bell does not struggle with its sound. It simply rings, and when the sound fades, it is at peace. In the same way, you can let your thoughts arise and fade without struggle. In that peace, you will find stillness. Hiroki bows deeply, his heart filled with a new sense of calm. As he sits quietly, the echoes of the bell's sound still linger in his mind, and he realizes that peace is not something to be forced or controlled. It is something to be allowed, something to be observed, just as the bell rings and fades. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine the sound of a bell ringing in your mind. The thoughts arise, strong and clear, like the sound of the bell. But just as the sound fades, so too will your thoughts. Do not resist them. Allow them to come and go, like the bells ringing, fading into silence. In this letting go, find a peace that comes naturally. The day is drawing to a close, and the temple garden is bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun. The shadows stretch long, the colors of the sky shifting from vibrant oranges and pinks to deep blues. The world feels timeless in these moments, quiet, peaceful, yet full of the subtle movement of nature. The air is warm but still, and the soft hum of life seems to be holding its breath before night falls. In the garden, a young monk named Riku walks slowly along the path, his bare feet brushing against the cool earth beneath him. His mind is troubled. Riku has been practicing meditation for many months now, but still, he finds himself struggling. No matter how many times he returns to his breath, no matter how many times he tries to sit still, his mind races with thoughts. His steps, like his thoughts, feel restless. The path before him, though well-worn, seems distant. as though it is not his to walk. Riku pauses near an old stone bench and sits down, his hands resting in his lap. The path ahead seems fragmented, broken by the doubts and questions that have been plaguing him. Master, he murmurs softly, why does it feel like my path is broken? Why do I feel like I am not moving forward? As if in response, an elder monk named Jinjo approaches. His presence is calming, and his movements are slow, deliberate, like the ebb and flow of the tide. Jinjo is known for his deep wisdom, his ability to see the quiet truths that others often overlook. He sees Riku sitting by the path, his expression one of uncertainty, and he sits beside him. Riku, Jinjo says softly, why do you sit here, troubled by the path? Riku sighs deeply, his voice filled with frustration. Master, my mind is restless. I try to walk the path to meditate, but I feel like I am not moving forward. I try to clear my thoughts, but they keep returning, and each time, I feel like I am lost. The path before me is broken, and I do not know how to continue. Jinjo looks at the path, his gaze steady. Do you see the stones on the path, Riku? Riku looks down at the path, his eyes following the stones that line it. Some are worn smooth by years of footsteps, while others are jagged and uneven. Yes, Master, I see them, he replies. Now, Jinjo says, do you think the path is broken because of these stones? Riku furrows his brow, confused. I suppose not. The path is still here despite the stones. But these stones make the journey difficult. They trip me up. Jinjo smiles softly, his eyes filled with quiet understanding. The stones are not the problem, Riku. The path is not broken because of the stones. The stones are simply part of the path. The journey is not about avoiding the stones, but learning how to walk with them. It is not the obstacles that prevent you from moving forward, but your resistance to them. Riku listens intently, trying to understand. But Master, the stones make the path harder. How can I walk with them without resistance? Jinjo gestures to the stones on the path, each one unique, each one adding character to the journey. Each stone you encounter is an opportunity to practice. You do not need to resist them, nor do you need to wish them away. You simply need to step over them, move around them, and continue on your way. The path is not broken by the stones, it is shaped by them. In the same way, your thoughts are like these stones. They will come, they will go, but it is your reaction to them that shapes your journey. Riku sits silently, reflecting on Jinjo's words. The stones on the path no longer seem like obstacles to be avoided. Instead, they're simply part of the path, each one a step to be taken, each one an opportunity to practice patience and presence. I see now, Riku says slowly, his voice softer, that I do not need to fight the stones. I simply need to walk with them, to accept them as part of the journey. Jinjo nods, his smile serene. Exactly, Riku. The path is not broken. It is not the stones that disrupt your peace. It is your resistance to them. When you stop resisting, when you walk with the stones instead of against them, you'll find that the path is always there, leading you forward, one step at a time. Riku feels a sense of lightness begin to settle in his chest. The tension that had been weighing on him lifts, and he realizes that the path is not something to be feared or avoided, but something to be embraced with all its imperfections and obstacles. The stones are not in the way, they're the way. The journey is not about avoiding discomfort, but about walking through it with acceptance. Thank you, Master, Riku says softly, his heart full of gratitude. I will remember your words. I do not need to avoid the stones, but walk with them, accepting them as part of the journey. Jinjo smiles, his eyes kind and full of wisdom. You're learning, Riku. The path is not broken, and neither are you. Every step you take, whether smooth or uneven, brings you closer to the peace you seek. Trust the journey, and you will find your way. Riku stands, feeling a sense of clarity and peace that he has not felt before. As he looks at the path before him, he no longer sees it as broken or incomplete. He sees it as the way, filled with stones, yes, but also filled with opportunity. With each step, he walks with grace, no longer resisting the obstacles, but embracing them as part of the journey. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine yourself walking along a path. The path is not smooth, and there are obstacles along the way, like stones in your path. Do not resist them. Instead, step over them, move around them, and continue walking. Know that the path is not broken by the obstacles, but shaped by them. In each step, find peace, knowing that the journey itself is what leads you forward. The day is quiet, the air filled with the sound of distant birds and the soft hum of the earth itself. The temple stands in calm serenity, its stone walls weathered by time, but steadfast, like the quiet heart of the universe itself. In the distance, the sound of a waterfall reaches the temple grounds, its steady rush of water creating a soothing rhythm, blending with the peaceful sounds of nature. By the riverbank, near the waterfall, a monk named Kenji stands, his feet grounded firmly in the soft earth. His eyes are focused on the rushing water, the white spray of the falls glittering in the sunlight. The water flows powerfully, relentlessly, never stopping, always moving forward. Kenji watches the water for a while, lost in its motion, but his mind is far from still. It churns with thoughts and worries, pulling him in every direction. No matter how much he tries to focus, the mind seems to be like the waterfall, loud, fast, and unyielding. Kenji's frustration builds. He feels as if his mind is a stone in the river, being tossed and pulled by the current, unable to control the flow of thoughts. His breath grows shallow, and his chest tightens. It is then that an elder monk, Daiki, approaches and stands beside him. Daiki has lived many years and seen many storms pass. His presence is calm, like the stillness of the mountains themselves. Daiki sees the tension in Kenji's posture and stands quietly for a moment, gazing at the waterfall. Kenji, Daiki says softly, his voice gentle but firm, "What troubles you, my student?" Kenji exhales deeply, the frustration spilling out in his words. "Master, my mind is like this waterfall, relentless, noisy, and out of control. I try to meditate, to find peace, but the thoughts come rushing like the water here. I cannot stop them. They keep pulling me in every direction, and I feel like I am drowning in them." Daiki nods, his eyes never leaving the waterfall. "Yes, Kenji," Daiki replies calmly, "the water flows swiftly, endlessly. But notice this, the stone does not try to stop the waterfall. It simply allows the water to flow around it. Kenji looks at Daiki, confusion still on his face. Master, how can the stone allow the water to flow around it? If the water is so strong, how can the stone not be swept away? Daiki gestures toward the stone near the base of the waterfall. The water crashes against it, creating ripples that spread out across the surface. Yet, despite the force of the water, the stone remains unmoved, its surface rough and unyielding against the current. The stone does not resist the water, Daiki says gently. It does not fight against the flow. It simply allows the water to move around it, to flow without force. The stone does not need to stop the water. It simply stands firm and allows the water to pass. Kenji listens, the words beginning to sink in. He looks at the stone, noticing how it stands strong and steadfast in the face of the rushing water. It does not try to block the water or change its course. It simply allows the water to flow, trusting that it will pass. Daiki continues, "Your thoughts are like the water, Kenji. They will come, they will go, but you do not need to resist them. You do not need to try to stop them. Like the stone, you must simply allow them to flow around you. Stand firm in your stillness, and the thoughts will pass. Do not cling to them. Do not fight them, but simply observe them as they flow by." Kenji stands still, reflecting on Daiki's words. For the first time, he understands that peace is not about controlling the flow of his thoughts. It is about standing firm in the midst of them, allowing them to come and go without attachment. He realizes that, like the stone in the waterfall, he does not need to fight the current of his mind. He only needs to remain still, trusting that the thoughts will pass on their own. "Master," Kenji says softly, his voice filled with a new sense of clarity, "I understand now. I do not need to stop my thoughts or fight them. I only need to allow them to pass, like the water flowing around the stone." Daiki smiles, his face serene. "Exactly, Kenji. The water does not stop to fight the stone. It simply moves around it. You are the stone, and your thoughts are the water. When you stop fighting, when you allow the thoughts to flow, you will find that they no longer control you. They are like the water. They come, they go, and they leave no trace." Kenji stands in stillness, feeling the truth of Daiki's words settle deep within him. He watches the water flow past the stone, the sound of the waterfall now soothing rather than overwhelming. He realizes that peace is not found by stopping the flow of thoughts, but by accepting them, by allowing them to move past him without resistance. "Thank you, Master," Kenji says quietly, his heart full of gratitude. "I will remember your teaching. I will stand firm like the stone and allow the water of my thoughts to flow around me." Daiki smiles, his eyes full of warmth. "You're learning, Kenji. Peace is not found in resistance, but in acceptance. Stand firm, be still, and the river of your thoughts will pass." Kenji bows deeply, feeling a newfound sense of ease. As he rises and walks away, he feels lighter, as though the weight of his thoughts has been lifted. The path before him is no longer filled with resistance, but with openness. Like the stone in the waterfall, he is part of the flow, neither fighting nor clinging, simply allowing. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine yourself as the stone in a flowing river. The water of your thoughts rushes around you, but you do not need to resist it. Simply allow it to pass, observing it as it moves. Stand firm in your stillness, and in that stillness, find peace. The morning breaks with a soft light, casting long, gentle shadows across the temple grounds. The air is crisp and cool, carrying with it the faint scent of dew on the grass and the distant sound of birds singing in the trees. The temple stands calm in the early quiet, its ancient stone walls untouched by the passing of time. A feeling of peace settles over the land as the first rays of the sun stretch across the sky, painting the world in shades of gold and soft pink. At the edge of the temple's courtyard, a monk named Isamu walks slowly, his steps deliberate and light. His robes rustle gently with each movement, the soft fabric blending with the stillness around him. His eyes are calm, but his heart feels restless. Though he has spent many years in the temple, his mind is still often turbulent. The more he meditates, the more the questions of life stir within him. He feels as though something is missing, like an unfulfilled longing that cannot be named. Despite all his practice, the peace he seeks still seems distant. As Isamu walks through the garden, he notices a stone bench beneath a tall, ancient pine tree. He sits down quietly, his hands resting on his knees, and looks out at the world around him. The morning is peaceful, the air filled with the gentle rustle of leaves in the breeze. And yet, there is an ache in his heart. He wonders if he will ever find the stillness he seeks, the elusive peace that seems to slip further away each time he reaches for it. It is then that an elder monk, Tetsu, approaches and sits beside him. Tetsu's presence is quiet but profound, like the deep earth beneath their feet. He has lived many years, walking the path of wisdom with a steady heart. He looks at Isamu, his eyes filled with understanding. "Isamu," Tetsu says softly, his voice calm and steady. "What troubles you this morning?" Isamu sighs deeply, the frustration in his voice evident. "Master, I have practiced for many years. I meditate, I sit in silence, and I try to quiet my mind, but there is still a restlessness in my heart. It feels like there is a piece of the path I cannot find, something that keeps me from fully embracing the stillness I seek." Tetsu looks at Isamu with a gentle smile, his eyes kind but knowing. "Isamu, do you see the morning light as it fills the garden?" Isamu looks out at the garden, the soft light filtering through the trees and touching the ground in gentle beams. "Yes, master. The light is soft and peaceful." Tetsu nods slowly, his gaze steady. And yet, the light does not try to force its way through the darkness. It does not struggle to shine. It simply is, and in its being, the darkness fades. Isamu looks at Tetsu, confused. "But master, how can the light not struggle? Shouldn't it try to overcome the darkness?" Tetsu smiles warmly, his eyes full of quiet wisdom. "The light does not fight the darkness, Isamu. It simply shines, and in doing so, the darkness fades. It is not through struggle that peace is found, but through simply being. You are like the light in the morning, Isamu. You do not need to force the peace you seek. You need only to let it shine from within you, without resistance, without effort." Isamu sits in stillness, reflecting on Tetsu's words. For the first time, he begins to realize that his search for peace has been filled with resistance. He has been trying too hard, grasping at the fleeting moments of stillness as though they were something to be earned, something to be controlled. But the light does not struggle, and neither does the peace he seeks. The peace is already within me, Master, Isamu asks quietly, his voice soft with the weight of realization. Tetsu nods gently. Yes, Isamu, peace is not something you must find. It is already within you, like the light that fills the garden. You do not need to force it. You only need to let it shine, to allow it to fill the space without effort. When you stop struggling, when you let go of the need to control, peace will be present, just as the light is present in the morning. Isamu feels a deep shift within his heart. He realizes that his search for peace has been a journey of grasping, of trying to hold on to something that cannot be held. He has been like the darkness, trying to resist the light, when all he needed to do was let the light shine. Thank you, Master, Isamu says softly, his voice filled with gratitude. I understand now. I do not need to struggle for peace. I only need to allow it to be. Tetsu smiles, his face serene. You are learning, Isamu. Peace is not found in effort or force. It is found in stillness, in allowing things to be as they are. Like the morning light, peace will fill your heart when you stop resisting. Isamu stands, feeling a quiet sense of relief. The restlessness in his heart has faded, replaced by a deep sense of understanding. As he looks out at the garden, bathed in the soft morning light, he realizes that peace is not something to be grasped, but something to be allowed. It is always there, waiting to fill the space within him. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine yourself as the light in the morning garden. Do not force it, do not struggle. Simply allow your peace to shine, just as the light fills the world without effort. Let go of any resistance and simply be. In this stillness, find the peace that has always been within you. The evening sky is darkening, the first stars beginning to twinkle in the vastness above. The air is cool and still, and a soft breeze moves gently through the temple garden, rustling the leaves of the trees. The world feels peaceful, as if the earth itself is slowing down to rest after a long day. The temple stands at the center of this quiet, timeless space, its ancient stone walls bathed in the soft light of the rising moon. In the temple's courtyard, a monk named Tsubaki walks slowly by the edge of a tranquil lake. The water is still, reflecting the beauty of the moonlight, which is now casting a silver glow over the world. Tsubaki has been meditating for many years, but despite his efforts, he still struggles to find the peace he seeks. His thoughts are like ripples in the water, constantly moving, never still. He feels as if his mind is never fully at rest, always filled with distractions and desires. No matter how hard he tries, he cannot find the deep stillness that he longs for. As Tsubaki walks along the edge of the lake, he notices an elder monk named Shoji sitting quietly by the water, his eyes closed in peaceful meditation. Shoji has spent many years in silent reflection, and his presence is one of calm, like the stillness of the lake itself. Tsubaki approaches him slowly, his heart heavy with frustration. Master Shoji, Tsubaki says softly, his voice filled with uncertainty. I have been meditating for many years, but my mind is never still. It feels like the surface of this lake, always disturbed, always restless. I cannot seem to find the peace I seek. Shoji opens his eyes slowly, his gaze kind but deep. He looks at Tsubaki for a long moment, as if seeing into the heart of his struggle. Finally, he gestures toward the lake, the moonlight shimmering on its surface. "Tsubaki," Shoji says softly, "do you see the water?" Tsubaki looks at the lake, its surface calm and undisturbed, reflecting the moon perfectly. "Yes, master." The water is still and calm. Shoji smiles gently. And yet, this water is capable of being disturbed. A single stone, a ripple of wind, or the movement of a fish will create ripples on the surface, will it not? Tsubaki nods, still unsure where Shoji is leading with his words. "Yes, master. The water is calm now, but it can easily be disturbed." "Exactly," Shoji replies. "Just as the water can be disturbed, so too can your mind. It is natural for thoughts to arise, just as it is natural for ripples to appear on the surface of the water. But notice this, Tsubaki. When the ripples appear, the moon's reflection is still visible beneath them. The ripples do not change the moon. They only cover it for a moment. In the same way, your thoughts may arise, but they do not change the peace within you. The peace is always there, beneath the surface, waiting for the ripples to fade." Tsubaki listens closely, his heart opening to the wisdom in Shoji's words. He watches the stillness of the lake, seeing how the moon is reflected perfectly on its surface, undisturbed even when the water is stirred. "So, master," Tsubaki says slowly, "you are saying that my thoughts are like ripples on the water. They will come and they will go, but they do not change the peace within me." Shoji nods, his eyes serene. "Yes, Tsubaki, the ripples will always come, and the thoughts will always arise. But the peace within you, like the moon's reflection on the lake, is not disturbed by them. The peace is always present, even if it is momentarily covered. Your task is not to fight the ripples, but to allow them to pass, knowing that beneath them, the moon, your peace, is always shining." Tsubaki stands still, the words resonating deeply within him. He realizes that his search for peace has been a struggle to stop his thoughts, to force his mind into stillness. But just as the lake cannot stop the ripples from coming, he cannot stop his thoughts from arising. What he can do, however, is allow them to pass, knowing that peace will always remain beneath the surface. "I understand now, master," Tsubaki says quietly. "I do not need to stop my thoughts. I only need to let them come and go, knowing that peace is always there, beneath them." Shoji smiles softly, his eyes filled with kindness. "You are learning, Tsubaki. Peace is not found by trying to control the thoughts. It is found in the acceptance of them, in allowing them to arise and fade without attachment. Just as the water is disturbed, and yet the moon remains, so too does your peace remain, even when the thoughts arise." Tsubaki bows deeply, a sense of calm settling in his heart. As he rises, he feels the weight of his struggles lifting. The lake, calm and serene, reflects the moon perfectly. And in that reflection, Tsubaki understands that peace is not something to be found, but something to be allowed. The moon is always there, and so is his peace, quiet, steady, and undisturbed by the ripples of his mind. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine your mind as a lake. Thoughts may arise like ripples on the surface of the water, but beneath the ripples, the peace remains. Do not try to stop the ripples. Simply observe them, knowing that the calmness beneath the surface is always present. In that stillness, find the peace that is already within you. The temple is bathed in the soft light of dusk, the sky painted with deep shades of purple and gold. The gentle breeze stirs the trees in the courtyard, their leaves rustling like a soft whisper. The air is cool and refreshing, carrying the scent of earth and pine, and the sound of distant birds coming to rest fills the evening stillness. The world, for a moment, feels like it has slowed, every breath taken in perfect harmony with the universe. In the temple garden, an elder monk named Shiro stands near the stone steps that lead to the meditation hall. His robe is simple, yet his presence exudes a quiet, timeless wisdom. He has spent many years walking the path of mindfulness, and his heart is as still as the moonlit pond at the edge of the garden. Today, however, there is something different in the air, something that stirs within him. As Shiro stands still, a younger monk named Hiroshi approaches. Hiroshi has been training at the temple for several years, but there is a sense of uncertainty in his eyes. His steps are hesitant, as though the weight of his thoughts is holding him back. His mind has been restless lately, troubled by the endless search for peace, yet feeling no closer to it. Master Shiro, Hiroshi says softly, bowing before the elder monk, I have been walking this path for so long, yet my mind remains unsettled. I seek peace, but it feels elusive. No matter how much I practice, I feel like I'm taking steps, but never reaching the end. How can I find peace if I cannot even complete the journey? Shiro looks at Hiroshi, his gaze steady and compassionate. He gestures for Hiroshi to sit beside him on the stone steps. Hiroshi, Shiro begins, his voice like the quiet rustling of the leaves. Do you see the path before you? Hiroshi looks down at the path that winds through the garden, its stones worn smooth by years of footsteps. He nods slowly. Yes, master, I see the path. Shiro smiles softly. And how many steps do you think you have taken on this path? Hiroshi hesitates, counting the steps in his mind. I have walked many steps, master. Countless steps, yet the end of the path always seems so far away. Shiro chuckles gently. The path does not have an end, Hiroshi. It is not something to be completed. It is something to be walked. Each step is important as the next. Hiroshi looks at Shiro, confused. But master, if the path does not end, how can I ever reach peace? How can I know when I am finished? Shiro gazes out across the garden, his eyes soft with wisdom. The path is not something you reach, Hiroshi. It is something you experience. Each step you take, no matter how small, is part of the journey. Peace is not at the end of the path. Peace is in the path itself. It is in the steps you take in the present moment, not in the destination. Hiroshi sits in silence, letting Shiro's words sink in. He looks down at the path once more, noticing the individual stones beneath his feet. Each step is unique, and yet it is the path that connects them, one after another. You are saying, Master, Hiroshi says slowly, that peace is not something I must reach, but something I must experience with each step? Shiro nods, his expression calm. Yes, Hiroshi, peace is found in the journey, not the destination. Every step you take, whether it is forward or backward, is part of the path. And every step, no matter how small, brings you closer to the peace you seek. But you will never reach the peace by striving for it. You will only find it by walking the path with presence and without expectation. Hiroshi closes his eyes, feeling the truth of Shiro's words resonate deep within him. He realizes that his search for peace has been filled with the expectation that it is something to be achieved, something to be earned at the end of the journey. But now he sees that peace is not a destination. It is a quality of each moment, of each step. Master, Hiroshi says softly, his voice full of understanding. I see now. The journey itself is peace. I do not need to strive for it, nor do I need to reach the end of the path. I only need to take each step with presence and awareness, knowing that peace is in the walking, not in the reaching. Shiro smiles warmly, his eyes filled with quiet approval. Exactly, Hiroshi. Peace is not found by completing the path. It is found in walking it with an open heart, in each step you take with mindfulness. When you stop seeking peace at the end of the path, you will realize it has been with you all along, in every step. Hiroshi rises slowly, feeling a deep sense of release. The weight of his striving has lifted, and for the first time, he feels a deep contentment with where he is. He looks at the path before him, no longer feeling the need to reach the end, but to walk the steps before him with presence and calm. Thank you, Master, Hiroshi says quietly, his heart filled with gratitude. I will walk the path with presence, knowing that peace is not in the destination, but in the journey itself. Shiro nods, his face serene. Remember, Hiroshi, every step is the last step, and yet it is only the next step. Peace is not something you must find. It is something you must live. As Hiroshi walks away, his heart light and free, he feels as though he is finally at peace with the path, just as it is. Each step, each breath is part of the journey, and in each moment, he finds the peace he has been seeking. The journey, like the path, is not something to be completed. It is something to be lived. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine that you are walking a path. Each step you take is part of the journey. Do not strive to reach the end, for peace is found in each step you take. In the present moment, with each step, feel the peace that is already here. The evening sky is a canvas of deep blues and purples, the last vestiges of sunlight fading beneath the horizon. The air is cool, crisp, and still, and the temple stands as a silent witness to the end of the day. The stone walls are bathed in the soft glow of the rising moon, which casts its light on the temple grounds, illuminating the path that leads to the meditation hall. The peaceful hum of the world outside seems to pause, waiting for the moment of silence that is about to unfold. In the temple courtyard, a monk named Masaru sits quietly beneath a large, ancient tree. The branches of the tree stretch high into the sky, and the leaves rustle gently in the wind, their soft whispers creating a calming rhythm. Masaru's eyes are closed, his hands resting gently on his knees. He has been meditating for hours, but despite his best efforts, a restlessness remains in his heart. His thoughts come and go, like clouds drifting across the sky. And though he tries to focus on the present moment, His mind continues to pull him away. Masaru has practiced mindfulness for many years, yet something inside him still feels unsettled. He longs for peace, but it seems elusive, always just beyond his reach. He wonders if there is something missing, something he is not yet understanding. As he sits in quiet contemplation, an elder monk named Tetsuo approaches. Tetsuo's movements are slow and deliberate, his presence calm and unwavering. He is known for his deep wisdom, and his peaceful aura seems to radiate outward, touching everything around him. He notices Masaru sitting under the tree, and he approaches quietly, sitting beside him. "Masaru," Tetsuo says softly, "what weighs on your heart?" Masaru opens his eyes and looks at Tetsuo, his expression one of uncertainty. "Master, my mind is restless. I try to meditate to quiet my thoughts, but they're always there like a storm that will not pass. I feel as though I cannot reach the stillness that I seek. I wonder if I'm missing something I'm not yet understanding." Tetsuo smiles gently, his eyes filled with understanding. He gestures toward the temple's silent halls, the soft glow of moonlight filtering through the windows. "Masaru, do you hear the silence?" Masaru listens carefully, his ears attuned to the quiet around him. At first, the silence feels like nothing, a void and absence. But as he sits in stillness, he begins to hear the subtle sounds of the temple, the soft rustling of leaves, the distant sound of water trickling from the fountain, and the steady rhythm of his own breath. "Yes, master," Masaru replies, his voice quieter now. "I hear it, but the silence feels incomplete. There is still noise within me." Tetsuo nods, his face serene. "Yes, Masaru. Silence does not mean the absence of sound. It is not something to be sought or created. It is something that already exists in the space between thoughts, between breaths, between moments. The noise of the mind may arise like a storm on the horizon, but silence is always there, beneath it, waiting for you to notice." Masaru listens closely, trying to understand. "But master, how can I find a silence within me? It feels as though my thoughts are always in the way." Tetsuo smiles softly, his gaze steady. "Masaru, you do not need to find the silence. You do not need to create it. Silence is not something that you can grasp, for it is already here in every moment. It is the space between your thoughts, the gap between your breaths, the stillness that underlies all things. When you stop trying to force the silence, when you stop trying to push the noise away, you will notice that it is already present, just as the moon is always present in the sky, even when clouds cover it." Masaru feels a shift within himself. He realizes that the peace he seeks is not something that needs to be attained or forced. It is already within him, waiting to be noticed. The silence is always there, beneath the surface of his thoughts, like the steady rhythm of his breath. "Master," Masaru says quietly, "I understand now. I do not need to fight the noise within me. I only need to allow the silence to be." Tetsuo's smile deepens, his eyes filled with quiet approval. "Yes, Masaru, peace is not found by fighting the noise. It is found in the awareness of the silence that already exists, like the temple, which remains silent even when you are not aware of it. The peace within you remains, even when the mind is noisy. All you need to do is notice it. Masaru sits still, his heart opening to the truth of Tetsuo's words. The tension that had been building within him begins to lift, replaced by a deep sense of calm. He no longer feels the need to control his thoughts, to force them away. Instead, he allows them to come and go like clouds drifting across the sky. And in that simple act of allowing, he finds the stillness he has been seeking. "Thank you, Master," Masaru says softly, his voice filled with gratitude. "I will remember your teaching. I do not need to create the silence. It is already within me." Tetsuo smiles, his eyes kind. "You're learning, Masaru. The silence is always there in every moment. When you stop striving, when you stop searching for it, you will find that it is already here, just as it always has been." Masaru rises, feeling a deep sense of peace settle over him. As he looks around the temple grounds, he realizes that the silence is not something to be attained. It is something to be allowed. He can walk through life, through each moment, in the presence of silence, knowing that it is always with him, beneath the noise of his thoughts. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine that you are surrounded by silence. It is not something to be created or forced. It is already within you, in the space between each thought, each breath, each moment. Allow yourself to rest in that silence, knowing that peace is not something you need to seek. It is something that is already here. The temple stands in the soft light of late afternoon, the shadows of the trees stretching long across the ground, as if the world is holding its breath. The air is warm with the scent of moss and earth, the gentle breeze brushing against the stone walls of the temple. The quiet hum of nature surrounds the grounds, the sound of distant birds, and the soft rustling of leaves. Everything is in perfect harmony, a stillness that seems to envelop the world. In the temple courtyard, a young monk named Renzo sits before a small wooden table. On it rests a simple bowl, empty and plain, its surface smooth and unblemished. Renzo gazes at it quietly, his mind unsettled. Though he has practiced for many years, the inner peace he seeks remains just beyond his reach. His thoughts swirl like the wind, never still, never calm. He has been trying to find the meaning of his practice, trying to understand why his mind remains in turmoil despite his efforts. A gentle voice breaks his concentration. "Renzo," it says softly. Renzo looks up to see an elder monk, Kazuo, approaching. Kazuo's movements are slow but deliberate, each step measured with the wisdom of years spent in quiet contemplation. He sits beside Renzo, his presence calm, like the steady rhythm of a distant drumbeat. "What troubles you, Renzo?" Kazuo asks, his voice warm with understanding. Renzo sighs, his hands resting on his knees. "Master, I feel like I am carrying a burden. I have been practicing meditation for so long, yet my mind remains unsettled. I am searching for peace, but it feels like I'm never truly free of the restlessness inside me. I feel like this bowl, empty but never complete." Kazuo looks at the bowl in front of them, his gaze steady. He picks it up gently and holds it in his hands, feeling its weight. "This bowl is empty," Kazuo says softly, "but is it lacking anything?" Renzo watches as Kazuo turns the bowl in his hands. "It is empty," he replies, but I do not see how it can be anything but lacking if it is not filled. Kazuo smiles gently, his eyes filled with quiet wisdom. The bowl is not lacking, Renzo. It is open. It is ready to be filled, but only when it is empty. If it is already full, nothing new can enter. The same is true of your mind. It is not the empty space within that causes the restlessness. It is the need to fill it that keeps you in turmoil. Renzo listens carefully, his mind beginning to quiet as Kazuo's words settle in. You see, Renzo, Kazuo continues. When you try to force your thoughts away or fill your mind with distractions, you make the space even more crowded. But when you allow the mind to be empty, when you let go of a need to fill it, peace will naturally enter, just as the bowl will be filled when you pour water into it. Renzo nods slowly, beginning to understand the depth of Kazuo's words. He had been trying so hard to control his thoughts, to force the silence that he so desperately sought. But in that effort, he had only made his mind more restless. It was not the emptiness of the bowl or his mind that was the problem. It was his desire to fill it with something, anything to avoid the quiet. Master, Renzo says softly, his voice filled with a quiet realization. I see now. I do not need to fill my mind with thoughts or control them. I only need to let it be empty, to allow peace to enter naturally. Kazuo nods, his expression serene. Exactly, Renzo. When the bowl is empty, it can hold anything. When your mind is open and free of attachment, peace will naturally fill the space. It is not about forcing stillness. It is about allowing it to arise like water filling a bowl. Renzo sits in silence, the weight of Kazuo's words sinking deep within him. He no longer feels the need to fight his thoughts or seek a perfect state of mind. Peace is not something to be filled into his mind. It is something that comes naturally when he allows the mind to rest in its natural, open state. Thank you, Master, Renzo says quietly, his voice filled with gratitude. I will remember your teaching. I do not need to fill the space in my mind. I only need to allow it to be empty, and peace will come. Kazuo smiles gently, his eyes full of kindness. You're learning, Renzo. Remember, peace is not something to be grasped. It is something that arises when you stop trying to control it. Just as the bowl is filled when it is empty, so too is your mind filled with peace when you stop striving for it. Renzo stands slowly, feeling lighter than he has in many days. The restlessness that had plagued him has begun to fade, replaced by a quiet openness. As he looks at the empty bowl before him, he understands that peace, like the water in the bowl, is not something to be forced. It is already present, waiting to fill the space when he stops trying to fill it with his own effort. Pause and reflect as you sit quietly now. Imagine your mind as an empty bowl. It is not lacking, but open. Do not try to fill it with thoughts or distractions. Simply allow it to be empty, and in that openness, feel the peace that naturally arises. Let go of the need to control your mind, and allow the stillness to enter on its own. The morning air is crisp and clear, and the sun is just beginning to rise over the temple grounds, casting golden light across the stone courtyard. The stillness of the early morning is profound, as though the earth itself is holding its breath, waiting for the day to unfold. A gentle breeze stirs the leaves of the trees, and the faint sound of birds calling from the distant hills fills the air. By the river that runs beside the temple, a monk named Yuji stands, his feet firmly planted on the earth, his eyes fixed on the flowing water. The river moves steadily, never stopping, winding its way through the landscape. The water flows around rocks and branches, sometimes swift, sometimes calm, but always moving forward. Yuji watches the river with a sense of reverence, feeling both its power and its serenity. His mind, however, is far from calm. Though he has spent many years in meditation and study, his thoughts feel like obstacles, like rocks in the river, preventing the natural flow of peace. He has tried to still his mind, to let the thoughts pass, but the more he tries, the more they seem to grow, like stones disrupting the flow of the water. He feels as if his mind is blocked, unable to move freely. The river, in its endless motion, serves as a reminder of the peace he seeks, but also of how far away it seems. It is then that an elder monk named Jiro approaches, his movements slow and deliberate, his presence calm and steady. He stands beside Yuji, looking at the river. There is a quiet understanding in Jiro's gaze, as if he knows exactly what is troubling the young monk. "Yuji," Jiro says softly, his voice gentle but filled with wisdom, "what is on your mind?" Yuji turns to face Jiro, his expression weary. "Master, my thoughts are like the stones in this river. No matter how hard I try, they disrupt the flow. I meditate, I try to let go, but it feels as though I am stuck. The river flows, but I feel blocked, like the water is being forced around the rocks. How can I find peace when my mind is like this?" Jiro nods slowly, his eyes focused on the river. "Yuji," he begins, "do you see how the river flows around the rocks?" Yuji looks at the river, the water swirling around the stones, finding its way through the gaps, flowing with ease despite the obstacles in its path. "Yes, master. The water flows around the rocks, but the rocks remain in place." Jiro smiles gently. "Exactly. The rocks do not move, but the river does not struggle against them. The water does not try to move the rocks or avoid them. It simply flows around them, continuing its journey without resistance." Yuji furrows his brow, not fully understanding. "But master, the rocks are still in the way. How can the river keep flowing without being stopped?" Jiro looks at Yuji with kind eyes. "The water does not resist the rocks, Yuji. It simply moves around them. In the same way, your thoughts are like these rocks. They may seem like obstacles, but they do not need to stop the flow of your mind. When you stop resisting them, when you stop trying to control them, you'll find that they no longer block your peace. Like the water flowing around the rocks, your mind will find its way, even with the thoughts present." Yuji listens intently, the weight of Jiro's words beginning to settle within him. He watches the river again, noticing how the water flows around the rocks effortlessly. It does not fight the stones, nor does it try to remove them. It simply flows, trusting the path that is before it. "Master," Yuji says softly, "are you saying that I do not need to fight my thoughts? That I should simply allow them to come and go like the water around the rocks?" Jiro nods, his smile deepening. "Yes, Yuji, the river does not stop to fight the rocks. It simply flows around them, and in doing so, it continues its journey without resistance. Your thoughts will come, just as the rocks are in the river, but when you stop struggling with them, you will find that they no longer have the power to disrupt your peace. You do not need to control them. You only need to let them be, and in that letting go, your mind will flow with ease." Yuji sits in silence, the truth of Jiro's words sinking deeply into his heart. For the first time, he understands that peace is not about removing the thoughts or forcing his mind to be still. It is about accepting the thoughts as they are, allowing them to come and go without attachment, like the river flowing around the stones. "Thank you, Master," Yuji says quietly, his voice filled with gratitude. "I understand now. I do not need to fight my thoughts. I only need to allow them to pass, like the water around the rocks." Jiro smiles, his eyes kind and patient. "You are learning, Yuji. Remember, the river flows not because it forces its way, but because it allows itself to be. The same is true of your mind. Allow it to flow without resistance, and you will find peace." Yuji stands, feeling the weight of his frustration lift. He looks at the river, the water moving around the rocks, and he feels a new sense of clarity. His thoughts, like the stones, will come, but he no longer needs to struggle with them. He can simply allow them to pass, trusting that the flow of peace will continue, just as the river continues its journey. Pause and reflect. As you sit quietly now, imagine your thoughts as rocks in a flowing river. The water represents your peace, effortless, steady, and ever-moving. Do not fight the rocks, nor try to control the flow. Simply allow your thoughts to come and go, knowing that peace will continue to flow, just as the river continues on its path, unimpeded. The sun has set, and the temple is quiet, bathed in the soft, silver light of the rising moon. The world outside is still, the gentle breeze carrying the faint hum of the earth. The temple, with its ancient walls and serene atmosphere, stands as a reminder of the timelessness of the path. In the stillness of the night, there is a deep sense of peace, an acceptance of all things just as they are. As you have walked through these stories, you have learned that the journey to peace is not about striving or seeking, but about being present in each moment, just as it is. The path is not one of perfection or control, but of acceptance and understanding. Each step is part of the whole, and every thought, like every stone in the path, is an opportunity to practice mindfulness, to embrace the present moment without resistance. Peace is not something to be attained, but something to be allowed. It is the space between your thoughts, the stillness beneath the surface of your mind. It is the gentle flow of the river, the light of the moon, the quiet of the empty bowl, and the sound of the bell that rings and fades. It is in the letting go, in the acceptance of what is, that peace arises naturally, like the water flowing around the rocks or the light filling the empty hall. In every moment, peace is waiting for you, not in the absence of thoughts or obstacles, but in the acceptance of them. Just as the tree bends with the wind, the river flows around the stones, and the moon reflects on the still water, you, too, can find peace by simply allowing things to be as they are. The path is not broken, and neither are you. The journey itself is the destination, and in each step, you are already home. Now, as you sit quietly in this moment, allow yourself to feel the stillness. Know that you do not need to search for peace. It is already here, within you, just as it has always been. Let go of the striving and simply rest in the present moment. Allow your thoughts to come and go like ripples on the surface of the water, knowing that beneath them, peace is always present. You are the stone, you are the river, you are the moon, you are the path. And in every step, you are one with the peace that flows through all things. The journey is not about finding an end, but about living each moment with presence and grace. Pause and reflect. As you sit quietly now, take a deep breath. Feel the peace that surrounds you, the stillness within. There is nothing more to do, nowhere to go. Simply be here, in this moment, with the quiet knowledge that peace is not something you need to seek. It is already within you, waiting for you to notice.